Welcome to the Sherdog Radio Network preview for UFC 316, Dvalishvili versus O'Malley 2. I'm your host, Ben Duffy of Sherdog.com. With me, as usual, is Keith Shillan, the executive producer of the Sherdog Radio Network. Keith, how are you doing today?
Dude, I I love how you say hi to me. Like we haven't been talking to each other for the last half hour with our absolutely diabolical system that was going on. We couldn't have. I had my audio wasn't working, my video wasn't working. Ben was trying to call up Dev to see who'd fill in for me. Like this is horrendous. Like I was screaming like just do it live, like Bill O'Reilly. Like oh man. But anyways. I'm excited. I'm always excited to break down pay-per-views. This is a good card. So, yeah, how you doing?
I'm doing well, and as we speak now, we are less than 24 hours removed from recapping UFC Vegas 107, which obviously it's the rare fight night card that's probably going to be frontline news beyond the next week just because of all the controversy and weirdness. But I said on the recap that without looking back, it feels to me like the worst UFC card in the last 5 years. That is a hell of a palate cleanser before diving into one of the UFC's tentpole events for 2025. There are two titles on the line here. There's I don't want to go too far out here before getting your temperature on this card. How do you feel about this one?
You know what? What if we don't give our grade right now? And the reason why I don't want to give my grade is I think if I give my grade away, I'll also give away my picks. So okay. I'll say it's good. It's deep. There's a lot of talent that I like, people that I've kind of backed, people that I was believers in for a while. So I'll say this. There's nothing that stands out to me on this card where I'm like, oh God, this is going to be terrible. So that's pretty good.
I'm with you on that. And there is a good amount of talent on this card that you have backed for a while. I'm on the flip side. There are several fighters on this card that I sort of dismissed or underestimated early on and have had to come around on. So I'm excited to talk about those fighters. Just verifying, and of course, if you are a habitual watcher of the Shillan Duffy previews, you know that Keith does not look at fight odds before previewing the card. He doesn't want to be biased by them. He's sometimes surprised when he picks what he thought was going to be an upset and is actually not, or vice versa. Just verifying with you, Keith, you have not looked at the odds on this card in advance.
Nope, not a single one.
Okay. I am not going to spoil anything for you. I will just say in general terms, there are some wide lines on this card.
Yeah.
And I will quiz you on them as I often do.
I'm going to guess that there's a current champion who's a pretty big underdog.
You would be correct, sir.
Okay.
Just because Keith doesn't check the odds doesn't mean he's not aware of what's going on out there. Something I usually weigh in on when the UFC is out on the road is how good a job their matchmakers have done in making the card geographically appropriate. Now, of course, the UFC is in Newark, New Jersey at Prudential Center this Saturday. We are, again, just 24 hours removed from New Jersey's top fighter being out in Vegas collecting what Keith and I, as former wrestlers, would refer to as a walkover.
Yeah.
But with Aaron Blanchfield, probably on a layover in an airport somewhere. Nonetheless, the UFC did not do too bad a job here. So New Jersey's top fighter is out of the conversation. But even beyond that, Joe Pyfer is from Greater Philly. Philly's an hour from Newark. Vicente Luque, despite being Brazilian and currently training in South Florida, New Jersey was the first place he lived in the States. There are two fighters from K Dojo on the card. As an outsider, I won't say K Dojo is New Jersey's top gym, but it's certainly the first one that comes to mind when I think about New Jersey MMA from here in Texas. It's kind of like AKA in California. It's become a magnet for overseas talent to come to the U.S. Like Yanal, Ashmouz, Azamat, Murzakanov are both training out of K Dojo, which is right there in New Jersey. They're going to go over like native sons. So considering that, and obviously Murad Dvalishvili from Georgia by way of Long Island is in your main event. So considering that it's a pretty lean time for tri-state area MMA right now, I think the UFC did about as good a job as it could. Like any pushback on that, or?
Yeah, the only thing, my only issue with the card, and again, I don't want to give away too much because then I'll give away the pick, but the main event, and it's not that it could possibly be the two best fighters in the division fight each other, no doubt. But we just saw it.
Well, if not the best fighter in the division is making his UFC debut on the main card.
That is a nice person to have on the card in case something happens. But I mean, we just saw O'Malley fight Merab.
Yep.
You know, that had a lot of buzz the first time because, you know, the jacket situation and the talk and all that. And that has been in any case. Like, if we're being honest, so far, and I don't expect to be when the rest of this week goes down, but so far, Pena Harrison has kind of overshadowed this one. I don't expect it to be, and I expect most of our listeners to still be more into Merab and O'Malley, but there's other people that deserve a shot, I think, more than O'Malley does. And I'm not an O'Malley hater like a lot of people are.
No. And we spoke at length on the recap last night about making the distinction between fighters that you personally find kind of tiresome or odious versus fighters that are terrible fighters or are terrible people. Like, you may not like Sean O'Malley's shtick, but he's a great fighter. So I'm with you on that. And we will talk when we get to the main event about some of the reasons maybe why the buildup has been quieter than we expected, quieter than the buildup to the first fight. But yeah, we'll get to that when we get to it. We have 12 other fights to talk about before then. I alluded to it a little bit, but former Bellator bantamweight champ Patchy Mix has finally gotten his divorce from Professional Fighters League. He's making his UFC debut, getting, I think, about as perfect a debut as you can get. He's taking on someone in Mario Bautista that's on a 7-fight win streak. So if Mix wins convincingly, you can slot him into a title shot, and it's not ridiculous. And
yeah, especially considering Merab has kind of cleared out the division, even though he's been a champion for a short time. But the run he had to go on to get the title shot is why he's fought. He fought Yanal, he fought all these guys coming up. So I love that. Any other general thoughts on this one before we dig into these prelims? Yeah, and just to add, the only thing that I would say is that's the fight I'm probably most interested in the entire card is Bautista and Mix. And most people, and the argument is Bautista was in an extremely boring fight in his last fight, and a lot of people thought he should have lost that fight. And Patrick Mix was in a fight that a lot of people thought he should have lost his last fight. So that's the funny part, the ironic part about that.
So it's rare that you get two guys this good and on this kind of run that there's a feeling that they kind of have something to prove.
Yeah,
it may mean that we get a great fight this time. We can only hope. The UFC 316 prelims begin, we think, with a lightweight matchup between Markel Mederos and Mark Choinski. Mederos, the 28-year-old Texan by way of Arizona, is 10-1 overall. He's 2-0 since joining the UFC out of Season 7 of Dana White's Contender Series. He fought most recently back in March at UFC on ESPN Moreno vs. Erceg, where he picked up a split decision over Austin Hubbard.
Okay.
Mederos had been scheduled to take on Balaji this past weekend at UFC Vegas 107. He became ill during fight week, either on the day of weigh-ins or even after weigh-ins, and had to withdraw. Michael Aswell stepped in on short notice, but Mederos just gets pushed back a week to face the debuting Choinski. Choinski, 29-year-old Milwaukee native, Rufus Sport product. He's a perfect 8-0 as a professional. He fought most recently back in March at it was an Anthony Pettis FC event where he choked out John Ramirez in the first round. He steps up here on fairly short notice. He is not favored to get it done in his debut, as Mederos is a comfortable favorite, minus 300, Choinski plus 250 coming back. So normally when an undefeated fighter makes a UFC debut, obviously I'm going to need to go back and dig up some fights, do some tape study, but I generally have some idea of who they are or where they've been fighting. Mark Choinski took me completely by surprise. I had to start just from zero, figuring out who this guy is, what he fights like, what kind of potential I feel he has at the UFC level. I'm here to report, and feel free, Mark Choinski's coaches at Rufus Sport, to clip this and play it back if he wins his first 4 fights in the UFC and he's tapping on the rankings 18 months from now. But I don't think he's ready for prime time yet. Watching him, he is a short, compact, muscular guy who is a striker by preference. I mean, he's been comfortable on the ground as well as on the feet, but he's clearly a striker by preference. Like in terms of body type, kind of like a Rafael Fiziev type, like a 5'8" guy with broad shoulders, muscular arms, muscular legs. He fights orthodox, he throws in combination, and he throws a good variety of strikes. He throws in combination, and he throws enough strikes. Nice jab, 1-2. He throws a lot of calf kicks. One of his more recent fights, his calf kicks were enough to get his opponents like switching stances within the first 2 minutes of the fight to try to get his lead leg off the gunnery range. Like a lot of short strikers, he seems to overreach a little bit rather than use his footwork to get into the pocket. But on the good side, he has good short range weapons. You don't always see guys that give up reach to most of their opponents who have a nice quick elbow in close quarters. He does. He has a lot of lapses in terms of his striking defense, like good striking offense, some serious problems in striking defense. Like watching a couple of his fights, this is an unfair thing to say because it's not like he's facing Dustin Poirier on Saturday, but several times I was thinking, okay, a good lightweight striker would have knocked Choinski out 3 times in the first 60 seconds of this fight. Just the way he'll like lunge, overreach, have his chin and, his shoulders way out over his feet and, be slow to come back. The question is whether Mederos can take advantage of that. I think he can. I think this is going to be rough going for Choinski. I think Mederos can find counters on the feet. I think Mederos can take advantage of Choinski's tendency to rush in and then reach to maybe hit reactive takedowns if he wants to. Choinski's fairly young. He is a good athlete. He's a hard hitter. There's the possibility that he sticks in the UFC. There's a possibility that he gets cut, comes back in a year or two better. But right now, I think this is Mederos' fight to win. And given the way Choinski fights and his defensive lapses, I think Mederos is probably going to get the finish. I'm going to say Mederos gets this done by second round TKO, probably after tagging Choinski up on the feet a bunch. Either hurts him and follows him down or just takes him down and pounds him out on the ground, round 2.
So, like I said on the recap show this week, I had a insanely busy week. Why did Mederos not fight this past week when he was scheduled to fight against Oki? I mean, obviously he was already probably cutting down weight, so that's always concerning to me. So I'm just going to repeat exactly what I said a week ago. Like nothing changed. He fights out of both stances, constantly switching to kind of get his opponents guessing. He's a good distance striker. He's got some quick hands, nice straight shots down the pipe. He's accurate. He's a good counter striker. He sets up his shots well by drawing out attacks with feints. I like his fade back counters. I love that he targets the body. He has some nice power. He's got 6 TKOs. He's got thudding leg kicks, good step in knees. He's not much of an offensive wrestler, and he's a bad defensive wrestler. And his get-up game has been very inconsistent, where sometimes he can get right up, sometimes he struggles. So you said you went to square one, looking at Choinski, looking at all his tape. I did the complete opposite. I started doing film study on him about 15 minutes before starting the show when I realized this fight got booked. Dude's not a good athlete. So we disagree on that. Like you said, he's a good athlete. I agree he's built, but when I was looking at his find a picture compared to his build. he's very fit. You're right, but he kind of looks like he's like CrossFit fit. Like his body doesn't like his face and his body doesn't like he doesn't have a face of a fighter. He's got good volume of the feet. I'll give him that, but he's pretty stiff. Like he's kind of raw. He fights behind a high guard defense. He lacks power because he just throws a lot of arm punches. I don't mind his kicking game. He likes calf kicks. He likes stepping knees. He's got a good plum clinch. He gets in there. He looks for takedowns, but I wouldn't say he's a wrestler. He does advanced position on the ground, though, and he has a submission artist. He's got 5 subs on his record. So as far as prediction goes, like I didn't see much of Choinski, but what I did see, I'm with you. I didn't really like. He's a bad athlete. I think Mederos is just going to be too fast for him. I think he's going to bat at Choinski for 15 minutes. Give me Mederos by decision.
We stay in the lightweight division on the UFC 316 prelims as Quillan Salkilld faces off with Yanal Ashmouz. Salkilld, the 25-year-old from Western Australia, is 8-1 overall. He's 1-0 since joining the UFC out of Season 8 of Dana White's Contender Series. He won on the Contender Series last September, made his UFC debut in February at UFC 312, knocking out Anshul Jubli in just 12 seconds. After that little reality check on the Indian prospect, he'll look for his second straight win in the UFC at the expense of Ashmouz. 30-year-old Israeli by way of New Jersey is also 8-1 as a professional. He's 2-1 in the UFC. He did win his last time out. He fought Trevor Peek at UFC Fight Night Burns versus Brady last September, where he picked up a unanimous decision. That allowed him to bounce back from his first and thus far only career loss all the way back in July of 2023 against Chris Duncan. So he's looking for his second straight win. He is not favored to get it. Salkilld is your favorite. Keith, what number does the line start with?
Well, it should start with a 1, being that I know you enough that when you ask me a question like that, it means it's going to be really big. So it's probably the 2s.
Quillan Salkilld, minus 500. Yanal Ashmouz, plus 375. For those of you watching at home, I know that different viewers of the Shillan and Duffy show come to us for different things. If there are people who come to us because they want the hard-hitting analysis, there are people that come to us because they want the primer on people like Mark Choinski that are making their debut and are basically unknown. There are people that like the chatty back and forth, the story time with Keith, the one-liners from me. If you're the type that likes Keith's reaction faces when he hears betting lines, this is your episode. Buckle up. Quillan Salkilld, minus 500.
You forgot about the other group of listeners, just the people who don't have a life that listen to us.
You're our real people. Yeah. You're our real people, folks. And I say this to you, Keith, every time. If you're a new viewer, I'm not fishing for outrageous lines. When I call these lines, it is kind of a median of the 4 or 5 most established sites available to North American bettors. So Salkilld is out there as high as like minus 625. Minus 500 is kind of a reasonable line heading into fight week. Keith, tell me what to expect out of this fight. Who gets it done? Why is Quillan Salkilld a minus 500 favorite against anyone in the UFC? Break down this fight for us.
So it's funny because this is one of the fights that I thought was kind of like, when you have big names on the card, you got, Sean O'Malley, you got Kayla Harrison, you got big characters. I mean, you got the debut of Patchy Mix, you got my boy Josh Van. Like, there's a lot of things to get excited about in the card. I didn't think anybody was going to pick this fight. So that's why I was so blown away by the line, because I thought this was kind of like a sneaky one. Like, I thought there was just 2 good talents, 2 guys I kind of like. Ashmouz, I mean, this guy, I think he's got a lot of talent. He fights out of both stances. He has good volume on the feet. He gets in the pocket and he throws hard. Just the fact that how hard he hits, that alone should not make anybody that big of a favorite against him. I mean, he can end a fight with 1 shot. I mean, look at his KO of Sam Patterson. I mean, that thing was scary, like scary. No, he's not the most technical. So he's not Sean O'Malley out there. He drops his hands. He does have a big kicking game. He loves high kicks. He loves calf kicks. Nothing. He throws a lot of high kicks. He can catch a high kick. He likes to close the distance. He'll work in the clinch. He can wrestle. He's got a good reactionary double when his opponent kind of over pursues. I like his upper body takedowns. He likes some trip takedowns. He's got a good top game. And the other thing about his top game, he has no issue just holding on his opponent and stalling, which, yeah, it's not exciting, but it helps him win. So that's another reason why when he actually lets his hands go, he's got good ground and pound. And if he's taken out, he's got a good get-up game. Now, Salkilld, I understand why there's hype about him. I mean, he's got everything you like. I mean, he's only 25 years old. He's long. He's very lanky. Got nice volume. He works behind a really good stiff jab. He follows with nice straight power shots. I like his straight right a lot. He's got some nice snapping shots. I mean, he showed great power against Anshul Jubilee. He's got a big kicking game, hard kicks to the body. He adds in kicks with his combinations. He does need to improve his defense, which is, again, why Ashmouz is a live dog here. He keeps his chin really high in the air. He was cracked on the Contender Series, and it was hurt. Now, he's a solid wrestler. He sets up his entries really well behind his strikes. He's got quick entries. He's got those long arms that help him get to the legs. He's got some really slick back takes. He's got 3 submission wins, and he's got good cardio. Like, he won't stop. I love this matchup. I think both guys are really solid. I think the line is freaking nuts. But I am going to go with the line. I'm going to go with Salkilld because he's longer and he's super slick if he can get the fight to the ground. That said, I mean, I was just a gamer. I mean, this line is nuts. But give me Salkilld by decision.
I'm glad you're with me on that because yes, Salkilld has the higher upside as a prospect. I'll get to my comparison in a minute, but he's a surprisingly good athlete. He's a work in progress technically, but just, yeah, like he's 5 years younger than Ashmouz. I understand why he's seen as having the higher upside, but yeah, anyone who hits like Ashmouz and has an offensive wrestling and top control game to turn to, it feels uncomfortable to me to have him almost, anyone minus 500 against him outside of like the top 10. It's wild. Salkilld, what he reminds me of, and this is just me connecting the dots of Australian prospects, I underestimated Steve Erceg when he got to the UFC because it takes you a little while to appreciate just how quick and athletic Erceg is. So I watched some tape on Erceg. I was like, okay, he seems pretty comfortable with his boxing for a guy that has a lot more submissions than knockouts. But I think the fast twitch flyweights in the UFC are going to blow him out of the water, and I was wrong. Salkilld has a little bit of that. Long, lanky, got the skinny man power, like the Tommy Hearns, just the power that comes from just having long limbs and knowing to kind of like sit down on your punches. Ashmouz, you named it all. It reminds me of kind of it's not the exact same skill set, but like kind of a latter day Caro Parisian type thing where just a guy with a judo background just has a kind of core strength that gives him surprisingly hard punches, even if the technique isn't great. And good takedown game.
A little bit of a Rick Hahn.
Oh yes, Rick Hahn. R.I.P. Bellator. R.I.P. Rick Hahn. That is a great comparison. That's even better. Thank you. If I was approaching this like Keith and I was trying to handicap this fight, not knowing what the line was in advance, I would have said, give me Salkilld around minus 180, Ashmouz plus plus 135, plus 140. And even there, I'd be like, look out for a little bit of upset value there. I'm not much of a bettor, but if I were, Ashmouz's punching power alone and Salkild's observable lapses in defense on the feet, I'd be hammering that. And this isn't the only matchup that I'll be saying that about on this card, but I am leaning chalk here myself. I think Salkilld maybe survives a couple scares from Ashmouz. We have to see, maybe there's a round where we have to see him defend himself on the ground, show his get-up game after Ashmouz just, steps in under a wild punch, trips him to the canvas, and spends 3 minutes parked on top. But give me Salkilld to get the decision here, survive and advance. Welterweights take the cage next, maybe, on the UFC 316 prelims as the great injury withdrawal slot machine spins up Chaos Williams and Andreas Gustafsson. Williams, the 31-year-old Michigan native, is 15-4 overall. He's 6-3 in the UFC. He's coming in off a loss. He fought most recently back in February at UFC Fight Night Cannonier versus Rodriguez, where he got choked all the way to sleep by Gabriel Bonfim late in the second round. Prior to that, he had been on a 2-fight win streak. He'll look to start up a new one here at the expense of Gustafsson, who I'm sure would be delighted just to actually make it to the cage finally. 34-year-old Swede is 11-2 overall. He fought on Dana White's Contender Series back in August of last year, knocking out Pat Pitlick in the second round. Since then, he has had 4 different opponents scheduled on 3 different dates. He was originally supposed to fight Preston Parsons all the way back in January. He was then supposed to fight Jeremiah Wells last week at UFC Vegas 107. Wells withdrew from the card about 10 days out. In stepped Trevin Giles. Giles then passed out cutting weight and conked his head, leaving Gustafsson once again standing at the altar. They pushed Gustafsson up another week, and here he meets Williams. Your favorite, Keith, is minus 190. Your underdog is plus 150. Who are they?
Oh, man. Well, I mean, I know Gustafsson was the favorite against Trevin Giles, so bettors like him. But for Chaos, I'm going to say Chaos is no, you know what? Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, sure. Chaos. I don't know.
Good call. Kalinn, Chaos Williams, minus 190. Andreas Gustafsson, plus 150. If you're watching this and you're a bettor and you can find a line for this fight doesn't actually take place, hammer that shit. Because these are 2 of the more unlucky guys in the division over the last 6 to 12 months. I just talked about Andreas Gustafsson's travails finally making it to the cage. This is Williams' 3rd different opponent. He had been scheduled to take on Albert Tadevosian. Tadevosian withdrew. Then Uros Medic was scheduled about a month out, so that would have been relatively short notice. Medic fell off, and here comes Gustafsson. So again, like I said, it's like a slot machine with just 2 rollers. This is what it rolled up. I hope it happens because of all the combinations that we've had between these guys and other people, this is the coolest matchup. Chaos Williams,
yeah, I agree.
For a guy that got off on the wrong foot with me by, making a short notice debut and knocking out my friend and teacher Alex Morono in like 30 seconds, he's become appointment viewing. At this point, I don't think he ever strings together enough wins to actually get into contention at 170, but 170 has always been a division where a hard dude can make good money for a long time just by winning 2, losing 1, picking up a performance or fight of the night bonus or 2 per year, and just becoming what I call the welterweight action hero. We got Vicente Luque, maybe the dean of that class that's still in the UFC right now, fighting on the main card tonight. And he's on the main card fighting Kevin Holland strictly on hay he made 8 years ago as the Chaos Williams of that era. So I like that this is happening here. Gustafsson, a guy that's debuting in the UFC at 34, assuming this happens. I mean, he might be 38 and still trying to get his debut, but you know what I mean. A guy that makes his debut in the UFC at 34 and isn't the most skilled or technical guy, he's not going to make a run to the title. He's going to be what he is. And he probably tops out at a reliable welterweight slugger for a couple of years. Great. Let's crash these 2 cars into each other and see what happens. It's interesting. It's only like things have only gotten worse for Gustafsson as this has gone along. Like he was favored against Parsons. He was favored against Wells and Giles each just a little bit. And here he's almost a 2-1 underdog to Williams. Not only does Gustafsson keep getting pushed back, but he keeps getting pushed into like incrementally harder matchups. Like Giles may not have been a harder matchup than Wells, but he was a bigger, more skilled guy whose weaknesses just happened to match up really badly with what Gustafsson is good at. I think it's worth wondering here if it's going to be a problem for Gustafsson, who, again, I said this last week, he's about as big as they get at welterweight. Is it going to be too much to ask for Gustafsson to cut weight twice in 7 days, basically? Gustafsson, again, he's not Randy Brown in terms of build, or even Uroš Medic. He's not as tall as those guys. He doesn't have the wingspan, but in terms of just the muscle on his frame, how much he probably walks around weighing in shape, he might be as big a guy as there is in the UFC welterweight division right now. Is it going to take anything out of him to cut to 171 twice, again, on consecutive Fridays? Even if he is just completely dialed in, on the sauna and like the little steam tent and the water cut, and he's his best version of himself walking into the cage, I do think Chaos Williams is a problematic matchup for him. Williams has turned out to be a little more nuanced and more skilled than I thought. Like when he got to the UFC, obviously the Morono win and his next couple of fights, he was the guy that knocked people out in 30 seconds. Just insanely fast hands, crushing power, through kind of in blitzing combinations that would put slow starter fighters on their heels immediately. But even once he ran into fighters that were beyond that weren't going to fall victim to that, he turned into a guy that he can win a 3-round fight. Like he's not the kind of guy that if he doesn't find the perfect punch, he struggles to win rounds. Like he's happy to have just a regular old kickboxing match with you. He may have lost to Michel Pereira, but it's not like he was just, it's not like he was clueless and out of the fight. He's won some, lost some, but here, short of Gustafsson catching him with a massive punch, I struggle to see how he beats Williams here. Gustafsson's probably his best route to victory here would be to crowd Williams, try to run him into the cage, maul him against the cage. I mean, he's going to be physically bigger than Williams, and if you can kind of just get him there, and again, to go back to a phrase I use all the time, just get his own chin off the gunnery range and use short range weapons against Williams, that might be his best route to grinding out a grimy victory. But that kind of goes against what Gustafsson likes to do best as well. He wants to just plant his feet in the middle of the cage and throw down, and Chaos Williams is not the guy to do that against. Give me Chaos Williams by first round knockout here, but if the first round knockout doesn't come, I'm still comfortable taking Williams in the 15-round fight or the 15-minute fight. I think even if he doesn't get the knockout, he probably wins all 3 rounds.
Yeah, so I totally agree with what you said about this being a better matchup. I'm more excited for this one, even though I wasn't picking Gustafsson to beat Trevor Giles. I think this is still a more intriguing matchup. Chaos wins. It's funny because I don't have a lot of notes on the guy, and I feel like I don't have a good read because of that. But he's just kind of good. Like he walks down his opponents. He throws a hard jab to the body, which I love. I've said this before. He's one of the most pound for pound hardest hitters in the UFC. He just kind of wings power punches, and if he kept it tight a little bit, he'd be even more dangerous. Brutally hard calf kicks. He will throw without a setup, so he's open to be countered. He's also not the most technical. He'll drop his hands and keep his chin high, and he's also very hittable. But he does have a good chin. He will look for takedowns, but I wouldn't say he's great at it. But he can stick it in if you don't pay attention. And he's very hard to get down. I mean, like the best guys get him down, and I think he's shown that he's a B level guy for the division, a B level welterweight. But that's still saying a lot because this is such a good division. Now, I mean, Gustafsson, obviously, I'm going to say the exact same words I was going to say a week ago. Like nothing changed. I will say this: like, I want this guy to be so good. He's been booked 4 different times so far, and before he can get a UFC matchup. Like, I feel like there's been like when I was waiting for Game of Thrones to come out, like the last season, I was keep getting like, oh, it's gonna be even longer wait, or the Chinese Democracy album from Guns N' Roses that we kept hearing about, or I ordered furniture like last summer from a place here, Cardi's, and I don't know, got back ordered, and then the didn't come in, and I think it ended up coming like 6 weeks later. That's how I feel like when I look at my couch, I'm thinking of Gustafsson because that's what he is. He's just waiting on furniture. I picked against him, and spoiler, I'm going to pick against him again here. I just want him to be good. Like he just deserves it. This guy, you know, so what I said about him last week, I'll say again. It's hard to get excited about a guy making his UFC debut at 33 years old. Is he even 30? I got to check the notes. He might be 34 or 35 right now.
He's 34 now. He turned 34 in February. So like since his first UFC booking. Yep.
There you go. He's gonna be like 39 or something before he gets his first fight. He's big for his weight class. He's aggressive on the feet, nonstop pressure. He's a big brawler, not very technical though. He throws hard. He's got 8 TKOs, but he loads up in every shot, leaving to be countered. He was rocked on the Contender Series, and a really good showing by him. He still was hurt in that fight, and that's because he lacks head movement. He will close the distance and grind in the clinch. Nice knees, nice elbows inside. He likes like clinch takedowns, and he's got good cardio. He's going to go hard all 15 minutes. We saw that so far. You mentioned about him having to cut weight. Like that's concerning to me. And I just think Chaos is just a bad matchup for him. Gustafsson eats too many shots, and Chaos hits too hard. Gustafsson's going to have to close the distance and try to grind and slow Chaos down. The problem is, like you said, Chaos isn't bad in there. Like he's not just this power puncher. That's what he's known for. But to me, I view him like you view Derek Lewis. When you think of Derek Lewis, you think of power punch. That's all Derek Lewis is. Francis Ngannou. Again, I'm not comparing him to those guys, but I think if you got punched by him, you wouldn't notice the difference between getting punched by him and Derek Lewis. You're going out no matter what. So I'm with you, man. I think Chaos catches him. I think Chaos is going to hurt him. Give me Chaos by first round TKO.
Next up on the UFC 316 prelims, we have the debuting featherweight Jusang Yu against Jeka Saragih. Yu, the 31-year-old South Korean, is a perfect 8-0 as a professional. He fought most recently at Z Fight Night back in December, knocking out Masudo Kanawa in the first round. He will look to stay undefeated as a professional, make a big splash in one of the most crowded divisions in the UFC at the expense of Saragih. The 30-year-old Indonesian is 14-4 overall. He is 1-2 since joining the UFC out of the first season of Road to UFC. So including those tournament fights, he's actually 3-2 in the octagon, but 1-2 officially in the UFC. He is coming in off a loss. He got tapped out by Weston Wilson just a little under a year ago at UFC on ESPN, Perez versus Tyra. He's been on the shelf ever since. He's looking to get back in the win column here. He is not favored to do so. The debuting Yu is the favorite, Keith. What number does the line start with?
4.
Keith is starting to get with flow here. Yu minus 500, Saragih plus 375, and I will count that as close enough for horseshoes because there were reputable books out there that had a bit like minus 475, minus 480. So I'll call that a hit. Keith, I'm gonna flip this to you, but I will. The puns are there to be had, aren't they? Yeah. I will flip this.
We already did it. We already did it before. We're off air. We did all the you jokes.
Yeah, I'm all right. I'll go all King James Bible. I will flip it to thee, Keith, because despite the fact that Jeka Saragih is 1-2 in the UFC, I think of him as one of the few people to come to the UFC out of that Asian reality show that's actually a decent fighter. I was shocked to see him this big an underdog. Tell me why Jusang Yu is this massive favorite over somebody that's done some work in the octagon. Like, what kind of upside do you see here?
The reason why he's a big underdog is Yu is He's really good. Like he's really good. I liked him. And you know how I, feel, I usually feel about Korean fighters. I don't really back them often, but this guy's good. Serghei, I mean Serghei's not bad. One big thing is he's small for the weight class. He does fight behind a high guard defense, which is good because he keeps his chin a little too high. He's a counter striker. He attacks with combos. He throws a lot of power shots. He does hit hard for a guy who's undersized, but he telegraphs by loading up so much. I'm gonna leave this one in my notes forever. I once saw a fight where he loaded up so bad that he almost knocked himself over trying to land his own punch. Like, I just, you know what it looked like? All right, I don't know why I thought of this reference, but I'm probably the only person. I'm going to even guess that Ben has not seen this movie. Ben, have you seen the silent film City Lights?
Oh, absolutely. City Lights is my favorite Charlie Chaplin movie.
Are you serious? Have you seen it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
He threw punches like Charlie Chaplin did in that scene when he's boxing. Anyways, silence. Sometimes people think this show was silent. Anyways, so yeah, not the most technical. So he overthrows, leaves himself open to be countered. He gets hit way too much for my liking. He will throw out some spinning attacks, which is fun. He has some hard body kicks. He is open to calf kicks due to him standing like super tall. He will land some takedowns, but I wouldn't say he's a wrestler. I know that's a line. Take a shot every time I say that. He is a submission threat. He has 4 subs, but he was just subbed by Weston Wilson, who's obviously not a really good loss for somebody. You, on the other hand, you reminds me of a fighter on this card, and it might surprise you who he reminds me of. I'm not saying he's gonna be as successsul, but the way he fights, yeah, he looks like the Korean Sean O'Malley.
I wasn't gonna say it.
He's good.
I'm so glad that one of us like popped out and said it. Yeah.
I watched one thing where he didn't even do like he was like watching Sean O'Malley film, but he did like a fake like I'm gonna throw a punch to someone over there and then throw the straight right. He's very athletic. He's explosive. He's fast twitch. I mean, he's super fast hands. He sets up his shots well with feints that kind of draws out his opponent's attacks. He's got nice head movement. He just slips out of range to avoid the shot, and then, but I should say, he slips out of his opponent's. He slips away from his opponent's strike, but keeps himself in range to land a beautifully timed counter. Great straight right hand, nice step back counters, good body work. He's got hard teep kicks, got a quick high kick. He'll throw out like some spinning attacks. He can sneak in a takedown. He needs to. He will move to a better position on the ground, but I think he needs to improve his overall top control. But he's very aggressive with his ground pound. I saw one fight where he got a takedown, and instead of controlling, he took the guy down and immediately just jumped up to his feet and tried throwing punches like standing above the guy instead of trying to control him. He has solid takedown defense. I love in one fight he had this like Travis Brown downward elbows to when his opponent was pinning him against him, and his opponent was going for a single leg. I love you here, not just because we've done so many shows together, but
we don't say it often enough, Keith.
Yeah, I think he's level ahead of Saragih. I should a guy be negative 500 in his UFC debut? No, there's a lot of pressure. Traveling from Korea all the way to New Jersey, time changes, the pressure, the jitters, things could just go wrong. You eat some freaking hot dog in the streets of New Jersey or some shit and eat a grinder or something that goes wrong. I don't know. But as far as talent-wise, I think he easily slips the haymakers from Saragih and then puts him away with the counter. I say Yu does it in the very first round.
Yeah. On the face of it, you if you look at Yu's highlight reel or any of his fights on the way up, he looks absolutely dazzling. Keith made the comparison. If you've been a fan of MMA for say longer than 10 years, the stereotype of the South Korean fighter. Just the Korean zombie is certainly the archetype. Just a hyper aggressive, like psychotically aggressive come forward striker that throws the kitchen sink, and usually they're actually really nifty grapplers if things go to the ground, but they would prefer to treat the floor like lava. That was the stereotype of the Korean fighter, up until really the last 10 years or so. Yu defies all of that. He is elegant, smooth, flows. If you're wondering why, okay, if he's this good, why is he only 8-0? Why is he just making his debut in the UFC at age 31? He came up through boxing. He didn't even make a MMA debut until age 27, I think. And looking at it from that perspective, it's actually kind of impressive how well he's picked up the other aspects of MMA. Like, he is clearly a striker by inclination and by preference, but he's not out of his depth on the ground. And he has a fine kicking game for a guy that, again, boxed from childhood. I persist in thinking that Jeka Saragih is the best fighter to come out of that. Well, no, he's not the best fighter to come out of that first season of Road to UFC, because like it did give us that one Japanese flyweight that's actually fantastic. But out of the featherweight class, he might be the best of them. But Keith said it. He is tailor-made for Ju Sang Yu to just get a highlight reel finish on, because Saragih is an aggressive striker with a pretty basic repertoire of strikes and some glaring defensive holes. This is going to look like a smaller Asian version of Anderson Silva versus Chris Lieben. Like, Saragih is going to swing at air a couple times. Yu's going to start nailing him in the face. And I think this thing's going to be over in the first round as well. So, yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about minus 500 for all the reasons Keith mentioned. Travel, jitters, dodgy street food in Newark, take your pick. But assuming the best version of Yu shows up with his digestive tract in good order, he should rock against Serghei. We head now to the women's flyweight division as Ariane Lipski da Silva takes on Wang Cong. Lipski, the 31-year-old Brazilian, is 17-10 overall. She is 7-6 since joining the UFC as the outgoing KSW flyweight champ. She is on a 2-fight losing streak, comprising both of her cage appearances of 2024. She lost to Karine Silva back in April of last year, then came back in November at UFC Fight Night Moreno versus Albazi, and got choked out in the third round by Jasmine Yazdavicius. She will look to snap that losing streak, stay above 500 in the UFC at the expense of Wang. 33-year-old from China is 7-1 overall. She is 2-1 since joining the UFC as a featured competitor on Road to UFC. She wasn't part of any tournament, but made her debut on one of those cards. She is coming in off a win. She fought back in February at UFC 312, taking a unanimous decision over Bruno Brazil. That allowed her to bounce back from her lone career loss so far against Gabriela Fernandez last November. Odds on this one do favor the Wushu Sanda practitioner. She is minus 350. Ariane Lipski plus 280 as your underdog. Keith, Ariane Lipski da Silva used to be the queen of violence. Now she's just the queen. I don't know if that's because she came to some sort of reality check about how she is as a fighter these days, or if it's just because she has kids and she doesn't want to explain to them why mommy's the violent anything. But tell me if she can pull the upset here against Wang Cong, and tell me what kind of upside you see in Wang as a 33-year-old that nonetheless is beating some decent fighters in a wide open division.
No matter what happens with Wang Cong, I think possibly the greatest comment in the history of our show was, and I forgot who said it, and I apologize. Whoever put everybody Wang Cong tonight, that might be the greatest comment in the history of this show. Yeah, Lipski don't want to spread violence, but she can't explain to her kid why her name is the queen of violence, but she can fight for a living. So. Oh man, I have no read on Ariane Lipski. I mean, she looks terrible in some fights, and then she looks promising in other ones where it's like, oh, she actually is still pretty good, and then terrible again. On the feet, she's a good distance striker. She got nice volume. She still has pretty fast hands, a lot of variety in her attacks. I love her kicks. She can close the distance and she can grind in the clinch. Her offensive wrestling isn't bad. Her defensive wrestling is awful. I thought it was improving against JJ Aldridge and Casey O'Neill, but then it looked absolutely horrendous against Jasmine Jasovicius. Now, you know how we feel about her. Jasmine is just wicked good. So
Yeah.
give that for what it's worth. But to have no answer at all looked bad. I mean, she struggles to get off the bottom. She does have 5 records, 5 subs on her record, so that's good. But she's taken tons of damage over the years, and you have to be worried about that chin. And you know, Wang Cong is one of the hardest hitters she's faced. Cong she's a really good striker. She can fight out of both stances. She fights with a lot of pressure coming forward. She would be better if she wasn't as flat-footed and plodding. But she's a good kickboxer. She has fast hands. She's super accurate. She loves getting in the pocket and just throwing big brawling shots. She draws out a lot of power because she really steps into her shots. Now she can load up a little bit, which is concerning, but she has massive power. I mean, her one-punch KO of Victoria Leonardo was freaking awesome. She mixes punches and kicks together well in a combination. She has a really big kicking game, good high kick. She doesn't move her head too much, so she does keep her chin a little high in the air. She's also open to leg kicks. She will look for a takedown, but I don't think she's very good at it. She's more of like catch a kick and get the fight to the ground that way. She got a submission on road to UFC, so that's good. But she also subbed by Gabriela Fernandez. But I really think that might be a fight that we go back and just and view it as a fluke one day. I love Lipski, but I think Wang Cong is going to absolutely steamroll her in this fight. I think Lipski tries to wrestle her, but she gets too many shots coming in. I think Cong hurts her. I see she hurts her late in the first round and finishes her. I think it's going to be the most impressive showing in Cong's career. Give me Cong by first round TKO.
Yeah, I like the read there, and even the non-read on Lipski da Silva, because I'm completely with you. I thought she had grown past the woman that was out wrestled by the other Shevchenko sister. She looked pretty good for a couple fights there, and then yeah, Jasmine Jasudavicius absolutely steamrolled her on the ground. Obviously, Jasudavicius is maybe the best offensive wrestler in the division outside of Valentina Shevchenko, but I made the little easy joke about her dropping violence from her name, from her nickname. But yeah, she's not the woman that we all thought she might be coming out of KSW 7 or 8 years ago at this point. And she's just 31. And for some fighters, that in that division, that means they might just be hitting their peak physically. They might have another 4 or 5 really productive years in them. But for Lipski da Silva, whose athleticism, durability, gas tank all seem to be in decline ever since she was literally like 24 years old, it's an old 31. Lots of punishment, lots of who knows what, but she's taking out someone in Wang that, yeah, I agree. This matchup is going to make Wang look better than she is. For somebody, I like that you mentioned this, because for somebody that came to MMA kind of like Yu Juseng, a late starter because of her striking background. I mean, she's a former Wushu Sanda world champion. She's a former, at least, medalist at the World Boxing Championships 5 or 6 years ago. She's kind of a slugger in MMA, and she gets away with it because she has the kind of reflexes in the phone booth and the kind of power that comes from being a striker from a very young age. But yeah, like very, very bread and butter. There's nothing of the fancy kung fu movie Wushu Sanda about her. And if you can't get out of the way of her punches, you go down like Victoria Leonardo. Or you just at least end up in reactive mode like someone like Bruno Brazil did. Like Bruno Brazil, a high level striker herself before coming to MMA, and somebody that was tended to be comfortable as an all the way in or all the way out striker, never got comfortable against Wang Cong, and that's why she lost. I don't think this is going to be a matter of comfortable or uncomfortable for Ariane Lipski de Silva. I'm with you. I think Wang catches her with something big. And again, Lipski de Silva's capacity for dishing out as well as receiving violence seems to have slipped badly. I think once Wang hurts her, it's going to be over quick and ugly. Give me Wang Cong by first round TKO. The lone heavyweight fight at UFC 316 takes place next as Serghei Spivac faces off against Waldo Cortes-Acosta. Spivac, the 30-year-old Moldovan, is 17-5 overall. He's 8-5 in the UFC. He's coming in off of a loss. He got knocked out late in the first round by Jailton Almeida at UFC 311 back in January. So he'll be looking to get back in the win column here. He will need to get past Cortes-Acosta in order to do so. 33-year-old, I believe Panamanian by way of Arizona, is 13-1 overall. He is 6-1 since joining the UFC out of season 6 of Dana White's Contender Series. And since suffering his lone professional loss against Marcos Pezal back a little over 2 years ago, he has strung together 4 straight wins over Lucas Dreski, Andrei Arlovsky, Rebelis de Spain, and in his most recent outing, Ryan Spann, whom he punished late in the second round at UFC Fight Night Vittori versus Dolidze 2 back in March. He will look for his 5th straight win, which honestly is probably good enough to start calling for title contender type foes if he gets it done here. Keith, this is the only close line on the entire card, and it's one of only 2 fights from here on out that is closer than 2-1. Your favorite is -120. Your underdog is +105. Who are they?
Spivac's favorite.
You're correct. Serghei Spivac is -120. Waldo Cortes-Acosta +105. I mentioned that there are a couple of fighters on this card that I underestimated and in some cases may even have just flat out mocked ahead of their UFC debut and have had to either eat my words or just learn some new lessons. Serghei Spivac is one of them. Serghei Spivac debuted in the UFC right around the time that we started doing a preview show. He might have been on his second UFC fight by then, but I said ahead of his UFC debut, if you come to the UFC and 2 of your last 3 wins were over Tony Lopez and Travis Fulton, you're not ready for prime time. Like, that's the equivalent of having a win over Jay Ellis in the last year before you joined the UFC. That's the heavyweight equivalent. And when Walt Harris completely destroyed him in his debut, I felt pretty good about that one-liner. I was a little bit wrong, but most of the difference is that Spivac has actually improved. What I didn't really account for is that Spivac was only like 24 years old when he came to the UFC, which is an absolute baby by heavyweight standards. He's still just 30 years old. And when he came to the UFC, he managed to be kind of undersized and kind of doughy at the same time. He was a terrible athlete, and short of just throwing a couple of haymakers, trying to hug somebody and dump them over, he didn't seem to have much of a game. He is now the most evolved possible version of that same fighter. He's never going to be Ciryl Gane or Tom Aspinall in terms of heavyweight athleticism. He's never going to move quite like that, but he's a much better athlete than he was. His body transformation has been obvious. Like, if you're looking at his picture underneath Keith and me right now, and you remember what his 2019 profile photo looked like, it's a night and day transformation. And it's just the result of, 1, actually entering his 30s, 2, having now spent 5 or 6 years able to train full time at decent camps. But yeah, he's still a guy that is a willing striker, but wants to wrestle you, take you down, beat you up enough to maybe either pound you out or submit you. That's what he wants to do. but he's gotten to the point now where it's a clear distinction. If you're a better athlete than him, to the point where you can stop his takedowns, or better yet, avoid his takedowns and punish him for trying, you're going to make Spivac look basic and you're going to beat him really bad. If you can't do those things, Spivac's going to beat you really bad. Like, look at the difference between his first fight with Marcin Tybura and his second fight with Marcin Tybura. They were about 3.5 years apart. The first time he was, because Marcin Tybura is the exact same fighter between those two. Like, all he really did was lose his eyebrows. But Tybura was bigger, stronger, actually faster in the cage. He was more athletic. When they came back around, Spivac folded Tybura's fight kit for him with Tybura still in it. Just quick and brutal. Look at Spivac, the way he took Derek Lewis to Suplex City like he was Brock Lesnar or something. Lewis, a guy that traditionally nobody does that to. Yeah, if you can't stop Spivac from kind of either getting in on your hips in space, or more often running you into the cage, changing levels and elevating you, you're in for either a very long night or a very short night. If you are Tom Aspinall, Ciryl Gane, Jailton Almeida, guys who are both bigger than Spivac and better athletes, his weapons dissipate in a real hurry, because all he has on the feet is kind of overreaching on big haymakers. And if you're fast on your feet and you're physically at least as strong as him, he doesn't have much of a takedown game. That's why this is interesting. This is the only Serghei Spivac fight in about the last 3 years that is hard for me to pick. Like, the rest of them have seemed pretty straightforward, but Cortes-Acosta is an absolutely massive heavyweight. He's more nimble on the feet than you would think for a guy that cuts weight to get to 265. I mean, again, he's not Gane, he's not Almeida, but kind of like prime Ben Rothwell, for a guy that is as huge as he is, he's kind of surprisingly light on his feet. Cortes-Acosta is the living embodiment of what a friend of mine who coaches locally said. He once said this to me about amateur fighters, but I immediately took it to apply to heavyweights, and it has stuck ever since. He said to me, all you need in order to win fights as an amateur is one good offensive weapon and the kind of will and aggression to use it and employ it. I feel the same way about heavyweights. And Cortes-Acosta, as huge as he is, he's not a huge power puncher, but he's a guy with long arms and a pretty good jab who's willing to use it. And guys that are willing to fight a patient outfight as a boxer in the heavyweight division are super rare. And thus far, exactly one person's been able to deal with it, and that was Marcos Pizal. The rest of the people that Cortes-Acosta's beaten, like, are not good, but they haven't been able to stop him from doing what he wants. Here, something's got to give, because Cortes-Acosta is going to want to kind of stay on his bike. You know, the offensive wrestling performance he put in against Rebelis de Spain is going to be nowhere in evidence here. He knows he doesn't want to be on the ground with Spivac, I assume. So he's going to try to be on his bicycle as the tires bend underneath him, and jab Spivac up, try to move laterally, stay off the cage. Spivac's probably going to kind of come at him in straight lines, swinging overhands, maybe throwing a kick or two, and try to get Cortes-Acosta down. I like that the line is as close as it is, because, again, I know what it looks like if each guy wins. I just have a hard time picturing which it's going to be. I'm going to lean on the favorite here. Give me Spivac to, at least in 2 rounds out of 3, either get Cortes-Acosta down and kind of expose his mediocre get-up game, or actually, get him down and do some harm down there and really expose his ground game. But I think that's the outside possibility. I think the more likely possibility is he wins 2 rounds out of 3 in kind of a grindy fight it's not going to be a heavyweight slobber knocker, if my guess is right, but at least it's the only heavyweight fight on the card. Spivac by decision.
Yeah. Heavyweight has really turned into the division I'm least interested in, including the women's divisions. Now that you got rid of the 145, other than when 135-pound fighters miss weight, but Yeah, I think it's the one fight. I mean, light heavyweight is kind of up there too, but which is kind of ironic considering the fight that if you gave me, all right, you can watch one fight, UFC, you book one fight that guaranteed, I would take John Jones versus Tom Aspinall. So it's funny to me saying that heavyweight is the one I'm least interested in, but it's, I don't know, Topuria and Makhachev would be up there too, but Spivac, yeah, I still think he's like, yes, he has transformed his body completely, but he's still a pretty bad athlete. He still struggles with the elite athletes, as you mentioned, like a Saragih. I agree with a lot of things you said. Like, he's a much better striker than he gets credit with, but he's still not a good striker. He's a very basic boxer, throws a clean 1-2 down the pipe. He works behind a jab. I mean, I go back to like the colors Felipe. He beat him with a jab. He throws out kicks, but I definitely wouldn't call him a kicker. He needs to improve his defense. He lacks head movement. He kind of pillars, which makes him very hittable, which is how he got battered by Saragih. He was hurt on the feet by Jelton Almeida. Despite thinking his wrestling is overrated, he's still a very solid wrestler. Though he did struggle to take down Saragih. Again, goes back to what you mentioned about him. Just if someone's a really good athlete, he struggles with them. He will shoot entries. He's not bad at them, but he's better at just like getting to the mid range and start looking for like snatch singles. He loves the close grinding clinch, slapping TDs type fight, wearing on his opponent in the clinch. He has some foot sweeps. He has some throws. He loves lateral drops, which I hate, especially considering he fights at heavyweight. But he'll throw some headlocks. He threw a Jelton Almeida with a wizard kick, which was fun. He is willing to give up his back. I don't think that's a concern against Cortez, but against other guys, obviously that's a concern. He is good when the fight hits the ground. He's got good ground and pound. He's got 7 subs on his record. I mean, hit Marcin Tybura with a super slick armbar from on bottom. Cortes-Acosta is the guy that he's really changed my opinion on him. Like I thought he was an absolute bum, and that's not the case. Like he's a good boxer. He got nice output on, for a heavyweight. He works behind a crisp jab. He sets up his power shots well with feints. He throws straight shots down the pocket. He throws he gets away with, like, sometimes he gets away from being technical and he looks for some like one big blow, and that kind of costs him. Like, I always go back to like the Andre Arlovski fight. Like, that's a fight he should have won in spectacular fashion. Instead, he lost. He has been a lot more controlled, and it's made him a lot better. He's good at wrapping punches around his opponent's defense if they pillar, something that Spivac does. He does a lot of good body work. I'd say he has plus power, but still not one of the bigger hitters for the heavyweight division. He's heavy on his front foot, which leaves him open to leg kicks. He does keep his chin high in the air, but he showed off an absolute great chin against Robelis to Spain. Like, he ate some shots and it didn't really affect him. He also showed good fight IQ by wrestling to Spain. He is a bad defensive wrestler, though. I mean, Chase Sherman took him down. I mean, that was a long time ago, but still, like, he took him down and he struggled to get back up. So as far as prediction goes, we have a much different feel on this fight, where you think it's a hard fight to pick.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Like, when you said that, there's big, huge lines, that'd be big, huge favorite. I thought there was going to be one fighter that was going to be a massive favorite. I think Cortez is much better than I originally thought, but I still like Spivac here, and I like him big. I expect him to close distance. I expect him to take Cortez down. I don't think the size will matter for Spivac. He's going against massive guys. That's usually not the problem. I think he beats him up on the ground. I think he mauls him. I think he subs him quick. Spivac, I'm going to say subs him in the second round. I was looking at a different fighter for my lock of the night. But when you tell me these odds, I think Spivac should be like a 3-1 favorite. I'm betting a house on Spivac, which is ironic because I used to hate this guy. But
folks, note that there's 2 ways you can go out on a limb if you're us. You can take an upset when the line is wide, or you can take the closest line on the entire card, which this one is easily the closest on the entire card, and call it your lock of the night. So
locking it.
Hats off to Keith, locking it in for Serghei Spivac to get it done, and the pick is by submission in the second round. Light heavyweights take the cage next at UFC 316 as Azamat Murzakanov faces off against late notice replacement Brendson Ribeiro. Murzakanov, the 36-year-old Russian by way of New Jersey, is 14-0 as a professional. He's 4-0 since joining the UFC out of Season 5 of Dana White's Contender Series. He fought just once last year. It was in August at UFC on ABC, Sandhagen versus Nurmagomedov, where he knocked out Alonzo Menefield in the second round. He's back 10 months later, had been scheduled to take on Johnny Walker. Walker was forced to withdraw from the card. He got injured when he saw Jordan Levitt doing his trademark dance in the octagon last night at UFC Vegas 107. In steps Brendson Ribeiro. 28-year-old Brazilian is 17-7 with 1 no contest overall. He is 2-2 since joining the UFC out of Season 7 of the Contender Series. 2-2 is the bad news. The good news is that after dropping his first 2 fights in the UFC, he is actually on a 2-fight win streak, including 1 appearance already this year. He tapped out Dr. Nurgajai at UFC Fight Night Vittori versus Dolidze 2 back in March. He's stepping in on just a couple weeks' notice here in place of Walker, and the line kind of reflects that. Murzakanov is obviously your favorite. Keith, what number does the line start with?
3.
Azamat Murzakanov minus 575. Brendson Ribeiro plus 410. Spoiler: Murzakanov is not the biggest favorite on the card.
Kayla Harrison is going to be the biggest favorite.
We'll get to it when we get to it.
All right.
I mean, I've said this before, but every month or every other month or so at SureDog, we'll put out an article called The Hit List, which just lists all the undefeated fighters on UFC. And there are always more of them than you think there are going to be. Like, you know, if I
had a hit list in high school.
Yep, I'm like laying back on the couch, like putting the lipstick on, just, you know, crossing people off my list like I'm in The Wedding Singer. There's always more than you'd expect. Like, if you ask the casual fan how many undefeated fighters are in the UFC, or ask him to name them, they might get to, you know, 5 or 8 of them. If you ask a Shillan and Duffy show viewer, a hardcore fan that watches almost all the cards, I bet if I gave you pen and paper, you could get to like 15 or 20. There are always 24, 26, 28. And I'm not even talking about an undefeated fighter from the Contender Series that's signed but not debuted yet. Like, talking about fighters who are undefeated and have at least 1 win in the UFC. And I always wonder, how does somebody that's undefeated sneak up on a division like that? Because normally, Keith and I talked about having that 0 in the loss column gets you overhyped. It gets you overbooked. It's sometimes not the best thing for the fighter. And for someone like Murzakanov, who is operating in what is frankly the UFC's glamour division, like in feast and famine, the top fighters at 205 tend to be the UFC's poster boys, going all the way back to, you know, Frank Shamrock and Tito Ortiz back in the day, through obviously, you know, Chuck, Tito, Randy, to, you know, John Jones. There's usually a couple reasons, and Murzakanov checks most of the boxes. One, if you don't look like one of the best fighters in the world, that doesn't help. 2, if you don't have an electrifying fight style, that helps. And 3, if you're on the, if you're the type of fighter that you're injured or whatever, and you don't fight that often, you don't fight often enough to stay in the casual fan's mind, that can be part of it. Murzakanov kind of checks those boxes. He's a short, squat, balding, 36-year-old Russian. And unless you're really, really familiar with what Russian fighters sometimes look like, you'd look right past them in a lineup. You know, it's kind of like if I took you back to 1999, showed you Igor Vovchanchin and said, hey, that guy's the best fighter in the world right now. You'd be like, huh? You know, that short, dumpy dude. Murzakanov's got some of that going for him.
Yeah,
for a
Fedor
guy
was a little like that.
Yeah, Fedor was a little like that.
Yeah. Hey, BJ Penn was like that too.
Yeah, like
for lightweight, I know it's obviously a different weight class, but yeah.
Yeah, he didn't look like one of the toughest dudes in the world. And then on top of that, Murzakanov, for a guy that's 14-0 and 10 of his wins are by knockout or TKO, he's not exactly Johnny Walker from a highlight reel standpoint. And then, yeah, he's 36, he's 14-0, and he's been fighting about once a year since he joined the UFC. In fact, yeah, he's fought literally once a year since he joined the UFC. All that combined to let the guy kind of sneak up on the division a little bit, but he's a very, very good fighter. At this point, he's beaten 4 different UFC light heavyweights. They've all ranged from decent to very good. Like Alonzo Menafield, Dustin Jacoby, Devin Clark, none of those guys are bums. All of them are guys that have at least been in the top 15 of the division. And very different fighters in their own way. He's handled them all. He's well-rounded. He's more athletic than he looks like. He hits harder than you think he would. And then he wrestles and grapples for a guy that it's almost all knockouts for him, about like you'd expect a squat, balding 36-year-old Russian to wrestle. I was really looking forward to his fight against Johnny Walker. It was the kind of the perfect contrast. The disciplined, technical grinder when he needs to be against the wild man. The short squat dude against the ridiculous physical specimen. Johnny Walker fell out, in steps Ribeiro, and I understand why the line is what it is, because Ribeiro is puttering right along at 500 in the UFC, and he has fought nobody that's on the level of anyone that Murzakanov has fought. Like, Ribeiro would be 0-4 easily against the 4 people that Murzakanov has fought. And I think Murzakanov is going to lamp him. Like a bad Murzakanov fight is when the opponent realizes quickly that Murzakanov's a better boxer than he is, and it just turns into 3 rounds of Murzakanov just kind of touching him up at range. Ribeiro doesn't have that in him. He's going to come forward. He's going to try to swing big stuff. He might even try something like flying, or he might try to take Murzakanov down. I don't think any of that's going to work. I think he's going to start running into Murzakanov's fists early and often, and I've got Murzakanov by first round knockout here. It will delight the crowd, as I guarantee you that they're going to announce him as being by way of Fairfield, New Jersey, Azamat Mizmaskis.
Dude, that was pretty damn good.
Thank you. Murzakanov by first round knockout.
Oh, that was pretty good, dude. Yeah, you talk about guys being undefeated and everything, and you're right with, obviously there's a lot more guys undefeated than people think, but there's a lot of like fake undefeated, like people that like they haven't fought the right guy and they're not that good, not someone to be special about. Like guy who they become a bigger favorite than they should be because they're undefeated. We've talked about this a million times. Take where guys stand if you give one loss, take it to 0, where they would stand and how they're viewed. Murzakanov not that guy. Like he's legit. The guy's good. He's a really good athlete. He's a southpaw that moves really well. I love that he cuts angles well. He's a very patient striker. Sometimes he can be a little too patient. He throws several single blows. He has a little like Yoel Romero in him, where he like waits back, and suddenly he bursts in with an attack. I like his boxing. He's got crisp boxing. I mean, his striking looked awesome against Alonzo Menafield. Accurate, gets in the pocket, and he throws hard. They're really tight hooks against Dustin Jacoby. He's got a nice left hook. Sometimes he'll look for a little too much, though. He does good body work, really rips the body. Not much of a kicker, but he does a lot of step-in knees, and I love that. He has massive power. He's got 10 TKOs. He got 7 in the first round. Obviously, his last name is Murzakanov, so you know he's a solid wrestler. Not much of a submission there. He only has 1 sub on his record. And cardio has been a little bit of an issue. I mean, he gassed out late against Dustin Jacoby. Ribeiro, so he's got a lot of like physical attributes. I mean, the guy's incredibly big. He's got like 81-inch reach. He likes to work from distance. Though he struggles to kind of cut off the cage despite that. He's a bit unorthodox. He's very wild. He can throw also like Murzakanov. He throws too many singles.
Are you just reading your notes on Johnny Walker?
Yeah. Good. They're good. Yeah, he's not the athlete that Johnny Walker is. But yeah, it's actually a good point. Like 81-inch reach. I don't know what Johnny Walker's in, but I'm sure it's probably around that. He can load up and throw from a mile away. Very Johnny Walker. He's a bit of a brawler when he should be more of a point fighter from distance. He throws a lot of looping punches. He mixes punches and kicks together. I like that. He has massive power he can connect, and that's something that reason why I can see Murzakanov should not be as big a fit just because of what Ribeiro could do if he connects. He's got 9 TKOs. He's got a great high kick. He loves teep kicks. Got some good calf kicks. He is heavy on his front foot, so he's open to leg kicks. He also keeps his chin really high in the air, and he's been knocked out in the past. He will wrestle, but he isn't really good at it. I'd be surprised if he could take Murzakanov down. If he gets on top, though, because he's so big, he's got good ground and pound. He has a submission threat. He's got 6 subs on his record, but he's a weak defensive wrestler. He makes it worse because he jumps guillotine and then struggles to get off his back. He also gassed in his last against what's the guy's name? Geds. How do I say it?
Gedzulov?
Yeah, I can't even say his name. But his cardio was pretty good against Kai Machado. So a little bit to be determined. I think Ribeiro might try to take Murzakanov down, but I don't think he's going to be able to. And I'm with you, man. I think he gets clocked, and I think it's going to be big shots. I think Murzakanov gets his 8th first-round knockout. We've had a trend of picking early stoppages. First round. I'm taking another one. Giving Murzakanov a first-round knockout.
UFC 316 is a card that has been stung by bout movements, bout cancellations, injuries, illnesses. The 5-fight main card has remained the same for a couple of months, but the undercard has been shot full of holes. But at least as of when we're recording right now, on Sunday night, heading into fight week, this is the scheduled top prelim, and it is a good one as Bruno Silva faces off against Josh Van. Silva, 35-year-old Brazilian, is 14-6-2 with 1 no contest overall. He is 4-3 with 1 no contest in the UFC. He's coming in off a loss. He fought most recently last December, getting stopped in the 3rd round by Manel Kopp. Prior to that, he'd been on a 4-fight win streak that saw him move into the top 10 and the outer fringes of title contention. He's going to have to try to reclaim some of that momentum after the loss to Kopp. Getting a win over Van would certainly go a long ways towards accomplishing it. Van, 23-year-old from Myanmar by way of Houston, is 13-2 overall. He's 6-1 in the UFC, and since suffering his lone loss in the octagon against Charles Johnson a little under a year ago, he's rattled off 3 straight wins over Edgar Jairez, Cody Durden, and Ray Saruya. The most recent of those, the Saruya fight, was at UFC 313 back in March. So Van is looking for his 4th straight win. He's looking to continue to cement his place as one of the most exciting young prospects in the entire promotion, and a fringe threat to the title picture himself. He's favored to get it done. Keith, what number does the line start with?
I think you got to try. I think you might be playing me. Van's the favorite.
Mm-hmm.
I think he should be big, but I'm going to say it's like -190.
Josh Van, -600.
Okay.
Bruno Silva, +425. Now, here's the thing. You will not find a bigger pair of boosters of Josh Van than the 2 guys you're looking at on your screen right now. And
I picked him to win the title.
Yeah.
And I've never done that.
Keith is on record as saying Josh Van is going to win a UFC title at one point. Like, as much as, Bo Nickel obviously became like a running unofficial mascot of the show, Keith is on board with Josh Van. I love Van's game and was kind of being careful not to oversell him as the prospect he appeared to be coming out of, my hometown scene. We both love Josh Van, and this is wild because Bruno Silva is a great fighter, and this is a great fight. Keith, talk me off the ledge. Tell me how this fight goes. How you think it plays out and who gets it done.
Yeah, I'm always excited to see Josh Van, and I think Bruno Silva is a good fighter. So definitely a fun fight, and flyweight. I just love flyweight. It's just such a freaking great division. I wish there was more star power in flyweight because the talent wise is second to none. There's just no boring fights. I mean, everyone knows I'm all in on Josh Van. The dude is good, and he's only 23 years old. I said it before, he reminds me of a young Max Holloway, and I've said it, he's got a very similar road to the UFC where he took, some early loss in that, but he just got in the UFC super young. You can see the talent. He's very athletic. And we know the big knock on him was always that he's a slow starter. He'd lose the first round. But that wasn't the case in his last fight. I mean, he started a lot quicker. He won the first round, and he's an ultimate builder. By the third round, he is laying out big volume, constantly taking the ground, forcing his opponent on the back foot. Much better being the one, pressing the action than the one, countering. He's a brilliant boxer, very technical, sets up his shots well with feints, quick hands, accurate, one of the best jabs in all of MMA. I'd say he has plus power, and that might be one of the knocks on him, but he isn't even close to his power yet. He's 3-4 years away from that. He works the body amazingly. I mean, he destroyed Kevin Bojas, Felipe Boons. Even in a loss to Charles Johnson, he was working him in the body. Nice kicking game. I love his teep kicks. He will throw some naked kicks, so he is open to be countered, so that's concerning. His step in knees might be the most my favorite thing on planet Earth. He can wrestle. He's got some fast entries. He's hard to take down. He showed against Cody Durden. He showed incredible takedown defense against Rai. How do I say his name?
Ray Saruya.
Ray Saruya. Yeah, I did all the tapes. I can't say guys' names. Even when he's taken down, he does really good to get back to his feet. I mean, he showed great get-up game against Zumagulov. If he's on top, he's got good ground and pound. He only has 2 subs on direct, so that's another knock. And he's been hurt a bunch. I mean, he was hurt by Edgar Chairez. He was hurt. Obviously, he was knocked out by Charles Johnson, and neither one of those guys have like Derek Lewis type power. So that's a little bit of concern. Bruno Silva, man, he's a really good athlete. Lots of movement, good footwork, a lot of L step in. He's a good boxer himself. He's got fast hands, great combinations, works the body well too. Has nice power. I mean, he crushed Tyson Nam with a beautiful front kick. He has been hurt in fights. I mean, I go back to like the David Dvorak fight. He was hurt in that fight. And Dvorak's not really known for his power, so that's concerning. He is a good wrestler. He's got some nice entries. Not the best defensive wrestler though. Dvorak took him down. Bekov took him down. He has a BJJ black belt. Really solid overall grappling, slick back takes, good submission defense. But he has slowed down late in fights, and that's a big concern going against a guy like Van who gets stronger. As far as prediction goes, do I think Josh Van should be a negative 650? No, just because of how good Bruno Silva is. I still expect him to win this big. I truly believe Josh Van is one of the best prospects in all of MMA, if not maybe the best prospect. I'm that sold on him. I think he comes out more aggressive like he did against Ray Saruya, and I think he destroys Bruno Silva. I think he does bad things to Bruno Silva. I think he batters him pillar to post. I think we might get a 10-8 round in the second. And then I think Van puts him out in the third. I think Van's going to have a vintage performance. Give me Van by third round TKO.
Yeah, I'm on board with the entire breakdown there. Bruno Silva, it's been fun to have him in the UFC. Him being basically a 500 fighter in the UFC belies how competitive he's been. He is a Pitbull Brothers disciple. And you know what? If the Freire Pitbull brothers, if they were the Gracies, they would have just tried to pass Bruno Silva off as like their other brother, because he looks like the next size down. Like you get Patricky, you get Patricio, and Bruno Silva. They're the same kind of squat build, the same face shape, the same beard, the same general kind of athleticism approach and fight style. Yeah, he's really the flyweight Pitbull brother. I kind of wish he'd gotten to the UFC a little younger and in better health, because he's a guy that maybe could have made a surprising run if he'd gotten the right guys at the right time. Josh Van is not the right guy at the right time for all the reasons you mentioned. one of the things, and again, I was cautious in big upping Van too much when he got to the UFC, but the one thing that I always want to wait and see when you get an explosive, athletic, young prospect that gets spectacular finishes on their regional scene is, what does it look like when they run into somebody that they just can't put away with a head kick or a flying knee in the first 3 minutes of a fight? Like, can they take some punishment? Can they stand up to adversity? Can they have gas in the third round of a fight where they're not in the driver's seat the whole time? Do they have an approach where they can win rounds if they're not getting off that one huge shot? Van has turned into a reliable round winner, and kind of the last piece to slot into that puzzle, he's becoming a reliable first round winner, which you pointed out that was one of the last knocks against him. That makes the window for Bruno Silva to do good work here really narrow, because as you pointed out, Van is becoming more reliably busy and productive in the first round, and Silva is a guy that we've seen fade in the third round. That doesn't get better after you turn 35, and Van is a builder. For that reason, I'm with you. I'm going to say this one makes it to the final horn, but Van wins all 3 rounds, and he wins it going away, where it gets more and more lopsided as we go along. I would not be shocked at all if Keith's call is correct and we get a 3rd round stoppage, but I'll go Van by decision here, but there will be no question who the better fighter was. And when Van calls out a top 5 or recent top 5 fighter, when he calls out, a Kai Kara France and Alex Perez type, nobody's going to be laughing. Like, this is going to be a big level up moment for Josh Van in the top prelim of UFC 316. The 5-fight main card of UFC 316 begins with a welterweight matchup between Vicente Luque and Kevin Holland. Luque, the 33-year-old Brazilian by way of South Florida, is 23-10-1 overall. He is 16-6 since joining the UFC out of season 21 of The Ultimate Fighter. He's coming in off a win. He choked Temba Garimbo all the way to sleep in the first round at UFC 310 back in December. That allowed him to bounce back from his loss a little over a year ago to Joaquin Buckley, in which he got knocked the hell out in the second round. So he'll look to string together 2 wins in a row for the first time in almost 4 full years. He will need to get past Holland in order to do so. Holland, 32-year-old Texan, is 27-13 with 1 no contest overall. He is 14-10 with 1 no contest in the UFC. He is 5-4 at welterweight. He just returned to welterweight back in March after a year or two fighting up at 185 pounds. He fought at UFC Fight Night Edwards versus Brady, where he took a unanimous decision over Gunnar Nelson. So he'll look to keep the good vibes going at 170 pounds. He is favored to do so. Keith, Holland is your favorite. What number does the line start with?
It's got to be 1s. There's no way Holland can be that big of a fit. No way.
Holland is minus. You ready?
Yeah.
Holland is minus 240. Luque plus 190.
Okay, that's all right. It's not ridiculous, but it's Kevin Holland. It's Kevin Holland. How can you trust him?
Keith has now delivered my entire breakdown of this fight, so I'll flip it to him.
How about this?
Here, I'll ask you this question.
Good.
With all due respect to my professor and friend Alex Morono, is Vicente Luque or is Kelvin Gastelum the oldest 33-year-old in the UFC?
Oh man, I'm gonna say Luque is the oldest. Gastelum at least has like a baby face.
This is true.
Dude, I have broken down. We have broken down Kevin Holland more than anybody we've ever broken. We've done like 40 times, and
it sure feels like it.
Luque is right up there. I mean, not as obviously as much, but I'm just going right to the prediction. Like, who you guys know what you get with these 2 fighters. I I don't. First of all, I don't think this fight should be on the main card. I think they're wasting a spot on the main card. Whoever wins, who cares? Like they're not going to go further. I think you could put Van versus Silva on the main card makes a lot more sense. I think Murzakanov on the main card makes more sense. But as far as the fight here, I hate picking Holland fights. I have, despite breaking him down, I have no read on him. It's because he doesn't have a read on himself. You know, he. This is just a job to him. This is not a desire. It's not a passion. It's the guy who, I mean, everyone has it at their job. I mean, you have the guy who does the bare minimum. He comes in, he's not happy. He just he don't care about the business. He talks shit about him. I know he's not doing that about the UFC, but you get my point. Like the guy who just doesn't really try. I mean, you work for Sherdog. I mean, you have Jay Petrie, like he does it, you get it. So every, and obviously I'm just joking. Jay's the man. That said, I think he's still probably better than Vicente Luque at this point. Especially at I know Luque won his last fight, but he's still a very declining.
Yes.
Luque. I think he stops takedowns from the Brazilian. I think he lands long range strikes from distance with no confidence, zero confidence in my pick. I think the line should be much closer, but give me Holland by decision.
Yeah, the decline of Luque, it's like trying to chart something where Holland is like this sine wave that it's going up and down, and Luque is just like this gradual. Like this gradual curve going down, and you're like, okay, when they meet at this point, which one's gonna be higher? And that makes this fight tough to pick for that reason. Luque spent kind of the 2016, 2017, 2018 years as maybe the second best, right behind Santiago Ponzinibbio, of that cadre of blood and guts mid-card action fighters at 170. And, those two guys, Nico Price, Tim Means fell in there for a bit. Like all of them just beating the hell out of each other. Randy Brown came in kind of late in that group. And aside from Ponzinibbio, Luque was probably the second best. He was for a blood and guts guy, a deceptively good offensive wrestler and grappler, and a deceptively kind of nifty and varied striker, but it all ran on just him being an incredibly durable, gritty guy that likes to bite down on the mouth guard and get in slugfests. And that was great as long as it lasted, but it's worth noting that his last two losses to Jeff Neal and Joaquin Buckley saw him get knocked out. And yeah, Buckley and Neal are two of the hardest hitters in the division, in each of the divisions in which they compete, but Luque has spent a decade fighting some of the hardest hitters in the world. It is that his body can no longer cash the checks that his heart is writing. Holland is probably not going to starch Luque, but if Holland fights smart, and that's one of the biggest ifs in MMA, he should make Luque look slow and basic, even if it goes to the ground. Like Holland, when he's being diligent on the ground, is a very capable grappler offensively and defensively. Like he can get held down and pinned down by a big middleweight. We saw that happen a couple times, but if he's just in guard against a welterweight, he's capable of getting up. He's capable of launching offense off his back. He's capable of throwing up submissions to start a scramble so he can get back up, or he can just lay on his back and laugh and throw short elbow strikes from the bottom and lose rounds. I'm leaning Holland here without much confidence, same as you. I'm glad that the line isn't wider than it is because, yeah, all Holland has to do is kind of futz around for 2 rounds out of 3, and Luque all of a sudden is on his first win streak in 4 years. Give me Holland by decision, but if I were a betting man, I'd be steering way the hell clear of this one. Next up on the UFC 316 main card is a bantamweight contenders match featuring the streaking Mario Bautista and high-profile free agent acquisition Patrick "Patchy" Mix. Bautista, the 31-year-old fighting out of Arizona, is 15-2 overall. He's 9-2 in the UFC. He is on a 7-fight win streak dating back over 4 full years at this point. He fought twice last year, taking a unanimous decision over Ricky Simón in January, and then coming back at UFC 307 in October and picking up a split decision over Jose Aldo in a fight that was frankly both lackluster and borderline in scoring, but nonetheless, he had his hand raised against the living legend, picked up his 7th straight win, and here he gets the call to welcome Mr. Patchy to the UFC. Mix, 31-year-old, fighting out of upstate New York, 20 wins, 1 loss. This will be his UFC debut, but he is the outgoing Bellator bantamweight champ. He was the bantamweight champ at the time of the Bellator acquisition by Professional Fighters League. He fought once under the PFL roof at the Bellator Champion Series Paris, where he picked up a 2nd win over Magomed Magomedov by split decision. He has been on the shelf for over a year. He was vocal in his criticism of PFL, just asking them, get me a fight, get me a fight, get me a fight. They finally parted ways a couple months ago. Officially, they all said the right things in the media about it being the best for all involved, but the UFC wasted no time in snatching this man up. He makes his debut in a high-stakes confrontation here. Keith, this is well, your favorite is minus 170. Your underdog is plus 140. Who are they?
Mix is the favorite.
You're correct. Patchy Mix, minus 170. Mario Bautista, plus 140. It's obviously, there's a whole lot of baggage that comes with it when a champion, like a high-level superstar from another promotion, debuts in the UFC. It's been the same since like 2006, 2007, when Anderson Silva and Mirko Cro Cop came over before the collapse of Pride Fighting Championships. And then, of course, in later 2007, there was the whole next wave of them. There's always been the wait and see. You've got the type of fan that either doesn't like the UFC for whatever reason, or just thinks that there's good stuff going on outside the UFC that gets ignored. There are more fans, more and more as the years go along, who think anything going on outside the UFC is irrelevant and maybe garbage. So anyone like Patchy Mix is carrying like, through no fault of their own and through no desire of their own, they're carrying the flag for basically global MMA. Like, I don't know if Patchy Mix is the best bantamweight in the world. I think we're going to find out within the next 12 months whether he is, starting on Saturday. But I'll say this. His last 5 wins over Kyoji Horiguchi, Magomed Magomedov, Raufeon Stots, Sergio Pettis, and then Magomedov again, that compares favorably with the last 5 fights of just about any bantamweight on the planet in any promotion. Like, that's
yeah. The only knock I'd say is that a lot of people thought he should have lost to Magomedov.
Yes,
but all right, fair enough.
But you're actually snatching away, the parallel with Bautista there. Although you kind of alluded to it during the intro. Bautista's on this unbelievable run, where
sure.
7 straight wins in one of the hardest divisions in the sport to do that. But he's also coming in off a win where he maybe did not look absolutely like himself. And in some people's opinion, he shouldn't have got his hand raised against Aldo. But Mix, it's not like trying to do a scouting report on Yuju Sang or Mark Choinski, where it's like, yeah, he looks like $1 million, but what's he going to look like once he gets out of this 3rd-tier regional promotion? Mix has been dazzling against very, very good fighters. Obviously, he's an incredible wrestler and grappler. He's a great athlete. Like, he's not titanic for the division, but he's big. He's big for the division. I think he's going to be visibly taller, lankier, rangier than Bautista. He's a fantastic athlete because he's got anytime you call an MMA fighter a great athlete, there are a number of things you can mean. And I think I said this a week ago in the preview. When I say Phil Davis is a great athlete, I don't mean he's this fast twitch freak. I just mean he's incredibly smooth, coordinated, fluid.
Sure.
Mix has that, and then he also has the I'm gonna show Rafion Stotts who the real explosive guy is and just ice him with a flying knee. He's got he's got
That
it
was
all.
crazy. That was crazy.
That was crazy because if you told me one of those guys won be a flying knee in 90 seconds, I'm like, oh, Stotts caught him. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Or just knocked out one guy one by knockout quick. Yeah.
Yeah. So Mix has that. He has he has the kind of just absolute top shelf athleticism that makes the rest of it go. He's become a very good striker. You know, he's a former college wrestler that took to the grappling part of it like a fish to water. His striking has been a work in progress, but it's gotten very, very good. I love this matchup for that reason. And I do love that he's going against a guy in Mario Bautista who is just very, very bread and butter. You know exactly what Bautista is going to do. Like the scouting report on him has not really changed in the time he's in the UFC. And until the Aldo fight, you know, like if he had lost the decision in the Aldo fight, I would have said, okay, that's the first time he gave away a fight he should have won. You know, that was the first time I saw him kind of just be hesitant and tentative and in pursuing his game plan, which is normally just so airtight. Having said that, even if that was an aberration and the kind of the Bautista who just schooled Simone and like Damon Blackshear and Brian Kelleher shows up, I don't think he matches up well against Mix. Bautista's not so secret weapon is like good, surprising, you know, reactive offensive wrestling, some good top position grappling. I don't think any of that's going to run against Mix. Bautista's 1-2 and like good leg kicks. And unless Mix kind of gets stuck in some mid range where he's just standing there and eating a lot of leg kicks, if he has the kind of outing he did against Magomedov in their second in their second matchup, I could see Bautista giving him some trouble there, but I don't see Bautista winning 2 rounds out of 3 that way. On a card full of -500 and -600 favorites that we're both scratching our heads at, I think Mix is going to win this, and I think he's going to win it easily enough that it looks like he should have been a bigger favorite to start with. Just because not only does he win, but I think Bautista is probably just going to have very few moments of positive stuff going on. I'm picking this one to go to the final horn. Give me Mix by decision, but I think it's going to be dominant, and the detractors aren't going to have much to say except that he didn't get the finish. But nonetheless, the fight's going to have plenty to slap on his highlight reel if he fights a top 5 guy next time out.
Yeah, dude. This is my favorite fight of the card. This is incredible. It should be the third from the top, no doubt. You said it right. Well, you know what? Let's start with Bautista. Bautista, like he get, like I said the other day, he gets a lot of hate for the Aldo fight. And yeah, he's categorized as boring, but he usually doesn't fight boring. He's constantly a guy moving forward and working. He's a pressure striker. He's been fearless at times, just kind of moving forward and not worried about being.
Just throw a thought out there real quick. A lot of the hate is because it was Aldo.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
If he'd had that same kind of outing where it wasn't his best night at the office against a less beloved fighter, like say you had that against like Marlon Vera or somebody, or that was the Ricky Simone fight, he wouldn't be getting the hate. It's the hate because it's Jose Aldo.
Yeah, exactly. Now, was he really boring? Yeah, but it was actually smart. It put him in a position to win. And I think some of it also was, you know, a little starstruck and worried and you know, you think about like the prime Jose Aldo and like, you know, when I think of prime Jose Aldo, I always think of flying me Cub Swanson. A couple other things I think of Jose Aldo. I always think about the first fight with Chad Mendes, where he clearly pulled on the cage and then used himself to turn around and land a knee, and I'm like, that was one of the most illegal moves ever, but okay. And then then the rematch against Chad Mendes in this super close fight where 2 different times he landed a punch after the bell ring. It was very like Jermaine Duran to me, Holly Holmes situation, but because it was Jose Aldo, he doesn't get any hate for it. But anyways, he's usually a really good volume striker. Batista is. He's technically sound, feints well, good footwork, keeps that he uses to keep his distance, cuts angles really well. I go back to like the Brian Kelleher fight, which was just like a flawless victory. He was feinting and just freezing Brian Kelleher with his feints, setting up his shots. He's got a great right hand. He's got a slipping counters and looking for uppercuts and close, landing some power shots. He's got nice power in his hands. I like his step in knees. He's got a big kicking game. Hard calf kicks, though he did abandon the calf kicks against Ricky Simone, something he should go definitely with the long legs of Patchy Mix, should go to that, especially keep the kicks to the calves. You don't want to go high because, Patchy, if you catch something, it'll just get you off balance. He wants to get the fight to the ground. He works well in the clinch. I mean, he can trap his opponent against the cage. Obviously, we saw that against Jose Aldo. He's a solid wrestler. I mean, he hit Brian Kelleher with this incredible foot sweep. He suplexed Guido Canetti in their fight. Good at winning scrambles, nice top control. He's got 6 subs on his record. He does need to improve his takedown defense. I mean, Damon Blackshear and Ricky Simone had some success against him, taking him down. And he's got really good cardio. You said it best, man. Like, I was going to have the same intro for Patchy Max. I mean, he's got tons of high-level success for a guy making his UFC debut. He's already beaten so many great fighters. I mean, you just look at his resume. You name him. You talk about the run he's on: Magomed, Sergio Pettis, Ruffian Stotts, Kyoji Horiguchi.
Yeah,
keep going. Like James Gallagher, Ricky Mondeos, Tony Gravely, Andre Ewell. Those are all good quality guys that some of them have had success in UFC. Some obviously had big success in Bellator. So he's one of the true top free agents signings in UFC history. And is he Crow Cop? No. Is his resume on that level? Yes. But I mean, like, I get the mystique, and when I think of free agent signings, I always, for some reason, Crow Cop's always one I remember first, because
for sure.
But there's tons of people, and I mean, Kayla Harrison coming in is one of them. But he on the feet, he's a good distance striker. Southpaw, kind of sticks to the basics. I mean, nothing like really stands out like spectacular. Like, yeah, he had that Stouts incredible knockout, but again, that's not really his game. He's more of like a stick and move, nice jab, nice straight left. He'll throw kicks, and a lot of times he'll throw kicks because he doesn't care if his opponent grabs his legs. He wants that. He's a really good wrestler. Definitely not this blaster your hips type run through the second level kind. He's more of that Michael Chiesa, using the long arms, kind of smooth, like slicing through butter type kind of guy, where it's just creating a scramble, and he's a super, super slick grappler. Great top control, incredible back takes. He loves backpacking people. He has that. He kind of grapples, even though they're so different physique wise. But like when I think of like Sean Brady, when Sean Brady takes people's backs, or another guy, and it's probably a little lazy comparison, Aljamain Sterling. The way Aljamain Sterling.
Well, the kicking game reminds me of Aljamain Sterling. The fearless kicks of a guy that doesn't care if you take him down.
Even the grappling, like Sterling was not this explosive drive through your kind of hips kind of guy, just more create a scramble. You look at him, you don't see this. You don't get these like incredible highlights of like, oh man, that was so slick how we just like slammed him in this night. He just gets that position, gets the takedown, takes his back. I think of like a Jake Shields in his prime kind of thing. Where it's just like, man, these guys are just so freaking good at their grappling. He's obviously a very creative grappler. I mean, he got the Sulu stretch submission in the past. He's very opportunistic. He'll jump. He'll just snatch on a neck. You leave your neck out for 1 second, he's snatching on it. He's got a great guillotine. I love that the line is close. When you talked about all the lines being huge, I thought maybe Batista was going to get disrespected and Mix was going to be a huge favorite. Some of that might actually be a little bit of that like Bellator hate. The Bellator guys don't get it much, and then obviously the recent success of like Pitbull doesn't help them. I should say not success, the results. This is still a great scrap. Definitely my favorite fight on the card. Batista's a massive test for Mix. I know, like, we just ran over all the people he's bet, and I don't think this is like he's a step up in test, but it's still like, a very hard test, very hard debut, but also the test that if he wins, you can make an argument to get a title shot based on former champion and the other major American organization, gets a win against a guy on a huge streak. It really is great matchmaking.
It is.
I'm a Batista guy, and I really wanted to take the upset based on that striking, the kicks, the foot sweeps, little things. I just can't. I just think Mix is a bad stylistic matchup, and we've seen lesser wrestlers be able to take him down. They weren't able to control him, but then they don't have the control of Mix. I expect Batista to try to use those kicks to work the range, but I think Mix is going to time a shot, get the fight to the ground. Once he does, I think he's so great at the ground. I think Batista, I think it just keeps happening. Batista gets frustrated. And, I think Mix is going to do what he does. I think Mix is going to sub him. Give me Mix by third round submission.
All right. There are 2 picks for Patchy Mix to put himself in the mix, pun fully intended, at UFC 316. Third from the top at UFC 316 is the rescheduled middleweight matchup between Kelvin Gastelum and Joe Pyfer. These two were scheduled originally to fight back in March at UFC Mexico City. Keith and I previewed that fight at the time. It was canceled during fight week when Pyfer fell ill. Keith, has anything changed in the last 2 months to change your mind on that one?
Nope. I'm probably even more confident in my pick.
Then I'm going to plug that preview in here. It's a weird one because that was one where we actually had to record our segments separately. So you'll see Keith and then me or vice versa. The only thing worth mentioning.
Yeah, that's when we were still fighting with each other.
Yeah.
When our lawyers said we couldn't talk to each other.
Only thing worth mentioning is that at the time we previewed it, Pyfer was a minus 300 favorite. Gastelum, I think, around plus 225 or so. Despite Pyfer being the one that withdrew from the first matchup, he's an even bigger favorite now. He's minus 375. Yeah. Gastelum plus 275.
Because they're not in Mexico. They're getting that, not getting the hometown crowd anymore.
Yeah. Instead, they're getting what is effectively a hometown crowd for Pyfer. As I mentioned, he's from Greater Philadelphia. That's about an hour from Newark. Stuff is closer on the East Coast than it is in Texas. I grew up there, I know. Anyway, watch this 2-month-old ancient footage, and we'll be back with your co-main and main events in a few minutes. Third from the top at UFC Mexico City is a middleweight matchup between Kelvin Gastelum and Joe Pyfer. Gastelum, the 33-year-old Arizona native, is 19-9 with 1 no contest overall. He's 13-9 with 1 no contest since joining the UFC as the middleweight winner of season 17 of The Ultimate Fighter. It's worth noting that he has competed at welterweight as well as middleweight, so while he's 13-9 with 1 no contest overall, he is 7-7 with 1 no contest at middleweight. Effectively, he is a 500 fighter at middleweight, and he is 6-2 below middleweight. So aside from the fact that he missed weight twice at middleweight, there's no question in which division he's more competitive. At any rate, he is coming in off a win, and it is a win at middleweight, even if it was against a fellow habitual welterweight in Daniel Rodriguez. They fought at UFC on ABC, Whitaker versus Alaskarov last June, and Gastelum picked up a unanimous decision. So he'll look to make it 2 in a row. And for the record, he has not won consecutive fights in the UFC in almost 7 years. You have to go all the way back to him retiring Michael Bisping and eking out a split decision over Jacare Souza back in early 2018 for the last time Gastelum won back-to-back fights. He'll try to do it here against Pyfer. Pyfer, 28-year-old Pennsylvanian, 13-3 overall, 4-1 since joining the UFC as a 2-time veteran of Dana White's Contender Series. He fought on season 4, fell victim to a kind of freakish elbow injury against Dustin Stoltzfus. He recovered from that, won a fight in Cage Fury Fighting Championships, came back on season 6 of the Contender Series, knocked out Ozzy Diaz, got signed to the UFC, and he is 4-1 since then. He won his last time out. It was at UFC 303 last June. He knocked out Marc-Andre Barriault in the first round. That allowed him to bounce back from his first UFC loss, where he lost a decision to Jack Hermansson in the headliner of UFC Fight Night 236 last February. He's looking for his second straight win here, same as Gastelum. Pyfer is favored to get it done. He is minus 300, Gastelum plus 240. I will flip this one to Keith for his pick.
All right, next, Kelvin Gastelum versus Joe Pyfer. This is a big fight. Gastelum, I mean, he's 33 years old, which is crazy considering he wasn't as young as Rojas, but he's been in the UFC so long. I think he might as well be 63 years old. I feel like I've been watching this guy for 20 years now. He got a win in his last fight, but this dude still lost 6 out of 9 fights and back up to middleweight. And, his last fight was at middleweight, but I still think this guy would be better at welterweight than middleweight. I mean, middleweight's a weaker overall division, but this guy's too small. The problem is this dude cheats on his diet more than I do. I mean, and I quit my mid morning. I'm quitting my diet. So I start another one tomorrow. It'll be by like 10 o'clock. I'll be like, oh man, I got to get some freaking fruit snacks or something to me. I don't know. And his motivation, I've always, you've heard about this guy, lack of motivation. We've heard countless stories of him slacking off, slew of injuries. I mean, he came up like such a piece of garbage in his last fight, making Danny Rodriguez move up to 185 the day of the fight. Despite that, it's on him. He's undersized for the division. And then add in the injuries that probably taken off some years of his prime. What I've seen him, he's a southpaw. He's a lot more athletic than he looks. I mean, dude looks like he should be doing, working the graveyard shift, security at the local hospital, making $12 an hour. But he's not. He's a good athlete. He moves well. He's got some quick hands, kind of fights and bursts, sets up his shots and uses feints well. His volume is inconsistent. We've had fights where he hasn't matched his opponent's volume. I go like the Darren Till fight. But his volume against Danny Rodriguez was actually pretty good. He has a solid jab. He likes his overhand left. Though he can overthrow it, leave himself to be countered. He really steps into his shots. And I'd say he has good power, but, I mean, he isn't the power puncher the broadcast team would pretend he is. I mean, the dude hasn't got a knockout since the Michael Bisping fight back in 2017. At least I think that is. Double check his record. I could be wrong there. But if not, he hasn't had more than 1 or 2 since then. He did have success against Danny Rodriguez with calf kicks, though he's open to calf kicks himself. He's above average wrestler. As he's gotten older, he uses wrestling less and less. But though I do like that he wrestled a lot against Danny Rodriguez. When taken down against Sean Brady, he couldn't get off the bottom. But let's be honest, nobody can get Sean Brady off of him. I mean, he was subbed by Sean Brady, but again, that dude is such a freaking stud and so hot right now. I mean, obviously just beat up Leon Edwards, which is such a great win last week. He's taken a lot of damage over the years and still shown that he has a good chin, really hasn't been hurt too much. Move on to fight Joe Pyfer. Pyfer is such a huge middleweight. I mean, he could easily be fighting at light heavyweight. He's a boxer on the feet. He wants to be the one moving forward. Go back to like the Jack Hermansson fight. He hated the pressure in Jack Hermansson that fight. When he's letting his hands go, he's got a good power jab. He follows up with power shots down the pipe. He attacks with combination. His left hook is his best punch. Though his overhand right is still pretty good too. He works the body a lot, which I like. He has serious punching power. I mean, he can end the fight with one single blow. He knows that he can fight end the fight so easily one shot that he will like almost throw too many big punches trying to land that big knockout shot. So that's a little concerning. I like his leg kicks. I mean, he's got some hard thudding calf kicks. He isn't a bad wrestler at all. I mean, you think of Joe Piper as a big puncher, but I mean, the guy's a good grappler. He's got some quick entries. He's very physically strong and grab a leg and tosses his opponent to the canvas. His overall grappling is very slick. Got some great back takes. He's hit a super slick head and arm choke. I think he's got 3 or 4 subs on his record. Defensively, you put him on his back. He struggled to get off the bottom against Jack Hermansson. I like Piper here. I'm assuming he's going to be one of the bigger favorites on the card. I just think he's the bad matchup for Gastelum. There's going to be a huge size advantage for Piper. Gastelum has a hell of a chin on him, but I think it finally fails out. I'm going to say Piper has the biggest win of his career. Not just who he beat, but also how he does it. I think he puts out Gastelum. I say he's going to do it in the second round. Give me Piper by second round TKO.
I wish we had more disagreement to spice things up for y'all here, but I'm with Keith again. It is. I'm not sure whether I'm surprised that Kelvin Gastelum is already 33 or that he's only 33. Just, he was a 21-year-old in the tough house. And he's now been in the UFC for over a decade. And yeah, in the division in which he chooses to compete, he's a 500 fighter. By that standard, you got to consider him a disappointment. I mean, he has a couple of really good wins at middleweight. There have been times that when he looked fantastic, but there have also been times that he's lost, and it was just really, really screamingly obvious that it was because he wasn't big enough. So I don't know if he'd had different discipline, different strength and conditioning coaches, different dietitian, and had been at welterweight this whole time, who knows? We might be having a different conversation about the guy now. But here at age 33, and a pretty old 33 if we're being honest, he is who he is. He's still a solid boxer with pretty fast hands and decent power. He's still a decent offensive wrestler, even at 185. And while a lot of Gastelum's opponents are bigger than him, when he really gets his wrestling going, it doesn't make a difference. I mean, Ian Heinisch is built like a tank, and Gastelum threw him all over the place. So Gastelum is still capable of beating people in the UFC middleweight division. I don't think Joe Pyfer is one of them. Pyfer, he was an intriguing prospect when he joined the UFC, and he's only gotten more so. Like, I'm not put off by his loss to Jack Hermansson last year. Hermansson is a super, super wily, tough veteran. He is the walking definition of a trap fight for someone like Pyfer, who is young, aggressive, raw, and thus to that point in his career had really not even faced much resistance. Hermansson was just the perfect guy, especially in Pyfer's first 5-round fight, to kind of show him what's up. I expect that Pyfer has come back better from that and will continue to come back better from that. It's hard to tell based on him lamping Marc-Andre Barriault in 90 seconds. We might learn more here, considering he's taking on someone in Gastelum that, despite fighting the best of what 2 different UFC divisions have had to offer him over the last 12 years, has never been stopped via strikes. Keith picked that to change on Saturday. So did our friend Devin Tejada of the Check the Kick podcast. Make it 3 for 3. I'm always a little nervous picking something to happen that I've never seen happen before, but I could see this being it. This is a fight where there's just not going to be any safe place for Gastelum. Pyfer is aggressive, capable of throwing big power at all ranges. Like, he's nasty inside with uppercuts and elbows and knees. He's nasty at range, kicking to the body, kicking to the head, kicking to the legs, which is something that Gastelum is often susceptible to. And while I don't know if Pfeiffer is a better technical wrestler than Gastelum, the combination of Pfeiffer being as good a wrestler as he is and younger and so much bigger and stronger than Gastelum, it will make him the more effective wrestler in the cage. So if they go to the ground, it probably isn't going to be where, when, and how Gastelum wants it. Yeah. I'd call this a passing of the torch moment, but if we're being honest, Gastelum isn't really holding much of a torch. I think this is more of just Pfeiffer continuing to get back on track after the Hermansson loss and show that he is not just a future contender at 185, but a now contender. Give me Pfeiffer by, I'm going to say, third round TKO. And by the time they get there, Gastelum is battered. Pfeiffer has outlanded him. Gastelum's lumped up. If Gastelum has tried his wrestling, he's probably something like 1 for 7 on his takedowns. Give me Pfeiffer to hurt Gastelum, follow him to the ground, pound him out down there. Third round TKO, and the first time we've seen Kelvin Gastelum stopped on strikes. That brings us to the co-main event of UFC 316, a women's bantamweight title fight between defending champ Juliana Pena and challenger Kayla Harrison. Pena, the 35-year-old Washington State native, is 12-5 overall. She is 8-3 since joining the UFC out of season 18 of The Ultimate Fighter. She rose from an inconsistent and injury-plagued run to become one of the more unlikely two-time champions in UFC history. She won the title from Amanda Nunes back in 2021 in one of the biggest upsets in UFC history. Lost to Nunes in the rematch, then fought Raquel Pennington last October for the vacant title and picked it up via split decision. This will be the first defense of her second title reign, and it is against a woman many see as the queen in waiting ever since she signed with the UFC a year or two ago. Harrison, 34-year-old Ohio native, training in Florida, 18-1 overall, 2-0 since joining the UFC as the former two-time PFL lightweight champ. She joined the UFC a little over a year ago, made her debut at UFC 300 against Holly Holm. Her first victory, you could argue, came when she cut all the way from 155 to 135 pounds with no apparent ill effects. And then her second win came promptly thereafter when she absolutely throttled an all-time divisional great in Holm. That served notice to the UFC that Harrison was and is the real deal. She came back in October at UFC 307, took on Ketlen Vieira, and won a pretty one-sided unanimous decision, thus positioning her for a shot at the title, which she's getting here. Keith, Kayla Harrison is your favorite. What number does the line start with?
Yeah, she was my guess for the favorite. So I try to, the biggest favorite of the night. I'm trying to remember who the biggest. I think was Josh Van the biggest one you said so far. Like, was he like 5 something? The 6.
Josh Van was minus 600.
Kayla can't be 7. It's 6. They get 650.
It is exactly the same. Kayla Harrison minus 600. Juliana Pena plus 425.
Imagine you're the champion. You've defeated the greatest female fighter of all time. I know. I think I scored the fight for Raquel Pennington. I can't remember, but it wasn't a robbery. It was super crazy close. People hate Juliana Pena because she's
annoying.
Yeah, but she's like, okay. Like, I know in my family all the time. Like, yeah. I'm the king of I do something around the house, and like I fixed the garage door opener the other day that's been broken forever. Like, I had to replace the sensors and everything. I just had to realign the sensors and everything. And one thing I always do is, like, my kids get so annoyed by it, I play that song. You can tell everybody I'm the man. Anytime I fix anything in the house, I always play that, or I'll do this like little joke where I pretend I'm getting a phone call from somebody, and I would be like, "Oh, hey, Mrs. Johnson. Oh, you need me to fix your garage door?" Like, also I have like garage door repairman, or like I dug on a path, so I got to do people's paths in their walkways and stuff. So yeah, I'm annoying. Like whatever.
That's pretty much what it comes down to. Juliana Pena is, I mean, she's one of the, I already said she's one of the unlikeliest, if not the unlikeliest, two-time champs in UFC history. I mean, imagine what we'd be saying.
Maybe that's positive.
Yeah, imagine what we'd be saying if Matt Serra had won the welterweight title again at some point. It's that kind of thing. Just an absolutely massive upset. If you win it again after that, I don't care if it was close. You have achieved something, and clearly some people have been writing you off. And there are multiple reasons that people would write Juliana Pena off. One, we've already kind of covered it. Her personality is a little abrasive. Two, she was, for most of her UFC run, was so frequently injured that, I've said this before about fighters up to and including Khabib Nurmagomedov. I don't care how good you are. If you're fighting once a year, the casual fan's not going to remember you, and you're going to get kind of underestimated. The wild thing about Juliana Pena coming into the first Amanda Nunes fight was that was the first time she fought twice in a calendar year in the UFC since 2015. Like, since before, like, the Reebok deal, before the UFC was sold, was the last time she had actually made it to the cage twice in a calendar year. She pulled off the massive upset against Nunes, and for what it's worth, there's no smoke and mirrors about the first win. She took Nunes' best shots. She got dominated in the first round. If you want to argue that Nunes underestimated her, and that's why she maybe wasn't as conditioned as she was, maybe didn't have enough of a plan B game plan if she wasn't able to just blow Pena out of the water in 5 minutes, that's valid, and you can say that. But if people are still underestimating Pena to that extent, they're kind of setting themselves up for it to happen again. At her best, when she's in the cage, here are the things I think Pena's good at. Early on, like when she was in her early to mid 20s in the tough house before most of the injuries, I think she was a modestly good athlete for the division. Like, she called herself like a Kentucky Derby thoroughbred. She was not a Kentucky Derby thoroughbred. You can forgive her for thinking so, because she was in a house with, like, Roxanne Modafferi, but she was a 6 out of 10 athlete for the division.
She reminded me of, like, if she wasn't like doing MMA, like, she'd be a catcher.
Oh yeah,
like, because she's like stocky and tough and like a good, like a Punch Rodriguez.
Yeah, there you go.
Like, you don't think of, like, I'm not thinking of Ken Griffey Jr. running up, the wall to catch one. She's not that level athlete, but she's like talented and
and whatever her native physical gifts are, has kind of built an appropriate skill set around them.
And my daughter would still strike her out if she was a catcher, though. But
yeah, for sure. And we'd probably get a couple passed balls where just her hand isn't fast enough to catch up to the curve. Having said that, Pena, for somebody that was kind of marketed by the UFC / marketed herself as, a hot chick early on, grimy and gritty, kind of the same thing you would say about Miesha Tate. Miesha Tate, a hot chick, markets herself as a hot chick, but blood and guts, got that same Michelle Waterson Gomez gene. She is not a great offensive wrestler, but kind of like a lot of people that come from Sick Jitsu, has a game that has adapted to where, like, her grappling puts her in position to win fights, even when she isn't the better offensive wrestler. And considering how many good ground fighters there are that their game really runs on them being the better wrestler. That's pretty impressive. I think she's a reasonably good technical striker with decent power. She doesn't have very fast hands or feet, but I don't see her as having gaping holes on defense. And yeah, like at this point, at age 35, she's running on veteran wiliness, toughness, physical strength. She's still very physically strong for the division. Tired or not, you don't dominate Amanda Nunes like that on the ground unless you're a bit of a physical hoss. And even going back to fighting with people like Jessica Ai, Kat Zingano, Valentina Shevchenko, she's usually not terribly overpowered by her opponent. I understand why she's such a massive underdog to Harrison. Harrison has the hype of being the 2-time Olympic gold medalist, being so utterly dominant in PFL, except for one single fight, and by the eyeball test being such a physical specimen. I think it may have been as recent as Harrison's very last fight against Vieira that I finally figured out what my go-to comparison is for her. But she's the female Brock Lesnar. She is obviously an outstanding offensive grappler in her art. She's a judoka, but while she has incredible technique, a lot of what makes it run is that she is so much physically bigger and stronger than almost all of her opponents. And even cutting down to 135 and fighting women who are used to being the big bully at 135. Like both of her opponents, Holly Holm and Ketlen Vieira, are not used to getting pushed around at 135 pounds.
Yeah, what she did to Holly Holm was one of the most impressive performances I've ever seen. I understand Holly Holm was 40 years old and not the very peak of Holly Holm, but still was a very competitive fighter in UFC, and she trashed her. And honestly, it looked like Lesnar versus Mir too.
Yeah. Yep. There you go. That's an apt comparison.
Kayla should have been freaking foaming from the mouth and shit, and then smashing her head against the cage and telling some random dude,
Curse Light.
Yeah, get on this guy.
I'm gonna get on top of Anthony Rocco Martin. I think she was on to somebody else. But, all right. Anyway, that's terrible. I'm sorry, but her limitations are the same, though. Here's the thing. Kayla Harrison, for somebody that came to MMA somewhat on the late side as an extremely decorated person from another combat discipline, I think it may be time to say that Kayla Harrison striking has gotten as good as it's going to be. And kind of like Lesnar, because Lesnar's problem was, Lesnar had the money to put together, basically Team Death Clutch was elite fighters that he brought to train with him at his compound in South Dakota, so he didn't have to go anywhere or do anything inconvenient to himself. We're talking about a guy that the only reason he didn't play in the NFL is because he didn't want to do a year in Europe first. Nobody tells Brock what to do. So he's bringing in people like Pat Barry and Chris Teixeira to work with him, and Greg Nelson to coach him at his house. All the pieces were in place for Brock Lesnar to become as good a striker as he was going to be. And he did. The problem is his body mechanics. Brock's shoulders were so broad and his arms so long and so heavily muscled that after hundreds or maybe thousands of reps, he always looked awkward throwing a basic 1-2 or any kind of kick. Kayla has a little bit of that. The way she's built, she's been an American top team for basically her entire professional career. It's one of the best, if not the best, gym in the entire sport. Her striking, it has power and she has reach because she's big and because she's athletic, but it's a little awkward and there are holes in it defensively. Also, on the rare occasions she runs into somebody that she can't just ragdoll effortlessly, she can slow down a little bit late in fights. She's lost one fight. She lost to Larissa Pacheco on her third try at beating her. And that's tough. It's tough to beat the same person 3 times in a row because all you can do is what you already did. They're getting more and more notes, but Pacheco
And
shows
Pacheco's a stud too.
Pacheco's a stud, and she was literally had 20 pounds more muscle on her frame by the time they fought. Like, she sacrificed her entire career to beat Kayla Harrison.
It
Like,
was
you look at her
against Cyborg.
Yeah. But you look at Pacheco when she was in the UFC, she's this like skinny little Brazilian thing, and she was an absolute tank by the time she fought Harrison the third time. But yeah, it's the game plan to beat Harrison is either stop the takedowns or get back up, make sure that Harrison is exerting herself as much as you, and keep punching her in the face. Whether it's hard or soft, keep punching her in the face, and you can get your hand raised against her, especially in a 5-round fight.
In fairness, it's probably a good strategy in any MMA fight to keep punching your opponent in the face.
It is, but how many fighters don't follow that plan when they should? I mean, we did just talk about Kevin Holland, an hour ago. I think Pena can do this. And I am going to look real stupid for making this pick about 8 minutes into this fight when Harrison has ragdolled Pena for the entire first round and most of the second. But I think Pena is going to survive the first 2 rounds. She's probably going to lose the first 3. She might be behind 30-26 after the first 3 rounds. Like, I could see a 10-8 first round. But I don't think Harrison's going to put her away. I think Pena is just too wily. She'll survive the ground and pound. She won't get armbarred. And I think she's going to take over late. I am calling the massive upset here. I'm saying that Juliana Pena is going to make some people incredibly happy, mostly bettors, going to make some people incredibly mad, mostly people that can't mute their TV fast enough after the decision is read or after the verdict is read. But give me Juliana Pena to tap out Kayla Harrison in the 5th round and defend the UFC bantamweight title in one of the bigger upsets you'll see in MMA all year long. And if you're watching this right now and you're like, I can't wait to dunk on this idiot.
It's all right.
You know where to find us. You know where the recap is, and you know that we are happy to take our medicine. Come give me my medicine if I'm wrong about this. But
dude, good for you, man. Good for you. I will say this about Kayla Harrison. About Juliana Pena and Kayla Harrison. Like, people hate Juliana Pena. There's a lot of people who hate Kayla Harrison too. And you compared her to Brock Lesnar. When you're talking about Brock Lesnar, you're just talking strictly her fighting style, because their personalities couldn't be too more opposite. Sure. Brock Lesnar is a dick, and I've interviewed Kayla Harrison 3 or 4 times, and every single time I absolutely loved her. I love talking to her, and she's generally such a great person. I'm a shill for Kayla Harrison. I love Kayla Harrison. You got me pumped for this fight now. So Juliana Pena, I agree with what you said. Like, when you think of elite athletes, she isn't a great athlete for this level of UFC. When you think of, and again, it goes by how you think of athletes. Like, when I think of the rugby player who smashes against the person in front of them, you don't think great athlete. No. I think great athlete.
In what other division are she and Raquel Pennington the 2 best people fighting for a title?
Yeah, but there's a thing to it. Like, there's a grimy, when I think of athletes, you don't think of the defensive tackle. You think of the freaking Saquon Barkley. You know what I mean? The Europeans. That's a really fast NFL running back who would.
It's a guy who appears to teleport through the line. On his 4th or 5th step. Yeah.
Right now, all the Europeans are like, "Oh, that's not even a real sport." Yeah, get your little skinny 130-pound soccer players. Give all 11 of them, and give Saquon Barkley the ball at one goal. Let him run, and not one of those guys are tackling him. All 11 of them. Anyways, but the thing that stands out to me about Juliana, she's a gamer. That's what she is. She isn't very technical. Her hands are kind of slow, as you made a joke about it with her catching ability. She does throw straight punches down the pike, which is good. She throws hard shots in the pocket. She's kind of like one of these hold your ground. We saw that in the first fight against Amanda Nunes, and I'm going to use Amanda Nunes, the first fight Amanda Nunes notes a lot, because that was obviously the best performance for career. That if she never wins another fight in her career, she'll always have that one. She could take a beating, keep coming. I mean, even the second Nunes fight, she kept coming in a fight where she was getting trounced. and she is very hittable. She likes to just rush forward and eat whatever's coming forward because she wants to get the clinch and grind. And that's where she really does her best business, is grinding the clinch. She got to the clinch and tired Nunes out in their first fight. She looks for body lock takedowns from the clinch. She'll try a lazy lateral drop, which don't try against Kayla Harrison. If she gets the fight to the ground, she's got pretty good control. She's got good back takes. I mean, she took Raquel Pennington's back, which is very impressive. I mean, Raquel Pennington historically might be the most underrated fighter in the female division's history. She can get a sub, but she's not the submission artist the UFC pretends she is. I mean, Sub Nunes was our first sub since she was on Tough. So if taken down, she struggles to get back up, and that's a big issue against Kayla Harrison. She'll toss up subs off her back. Her sub defense, you're a little higher than I am. She has been subbed in the past. I mean, she was subbed by Valentina Shevchenko. Not that that's a bad submission because Valentina Shevchenko is so well on it, but when she got subbed, Valentina Shevchenko wasn't supposed to be known for her grappling then.
Right.
She was surprisingly subbed by Jermaine Durandamy, and I know Jermaine won the title. That submission loss has never aged well. No. But her best aspect in this fight, her best attribute is the cardio, the ability to go hard all 25 minutes, cutting down to 135, now having 2 extra rounds. That definitely helps. Those 2 extra rounds favor Pena. Kayla Harrison. I mean, when I think Kayla Harrison, I mean, you talk about she's since she was doing sideline interviews in the PFL, I don't know what it was, 6-7 years ago. She talked to maybe 9 years. I don't know how long. It's been a while now, but she talked about being the best fighter in the world for years, and now she finally has the chance to do it. She's talked it forever, and now she's in that position, and she's a negative 500 or 600, whatever you said, favorite to do it. Negative 600 favorite to do it. She's a southpaw. She has very like bob and weave in style. Used a lot of feints to set up her shots. Pretty average hand speed. She doesn't really attack with combos though. She throws a lot too many single strikes, kind of Brock Lesnar like. She does have some power, and that's because she throws a lot of winging punches. She has a lot of like lead hooks and stuff. But she doesn't hit as hard as she looks like she should. I mean, she's ripped to shreds. She does drop her hands. She does a lot of rolls defensively to avoid punches. She throws kicks, but doesn't set them up, leaving her open to be countered. She also throws kicks that she don't give you grab them. Go ahead, go for it. She did a lot of inside leg kicks in the last fight. Her offense puts everyone constantly on the defense because they don't want to be taken down by her. So they're so defensive against her. She wants to close the distance and just use her physical strength to her advantage. I mean, her arms are probably bigger than Tar Masvidal's arms. I mean, it's freaking incredible. Yeah. I mean, I've seen her in person, and her physique is amazing. She don't miss the gym days. Her clinch is just her world. I mean, that's a place where Pena likes being comfortable, and I think it's a place Pena can do well later on in the fight. In the beginning, and it's weird because Pena's in a position where she kind of needs to be in that position in the beginning, where she's losing, but she's making Kayla work. So she's got to put herself in a position where she's going to get trashed, and hope she survives that trashing. Though later on, she can start winning the position.
It's like an MMA rope-a-dope.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, Kayla can battle in the clinch and just use her control. She has no issues wearing her opponent down in the clinch too, just using their strength. Obviously, she has incredible hip control. We see it anytime someone tries to take her down. I mean, she's obviously the greatest U.S. judo player in history. I don't follow judo to know who's the top ones, but I know in America, it's her. I mean, she's a 2-time Olympic gold medalist. Incredible throws, incredible trips. What I love is she's, doing the Mako wrestling Steve Mako. Shout out to Coach Mako, who's coached many times in my son's wrestling room. He's a fan. Like, dude, you talk about a freaking humble ass dude. I'm like, what a good dude that guy is. Anyways, can shoot wrestling entries, smother in top control, moves to a better position on the ground, moves so well on the ground on top. She's a serious submission threat. She got 7 subs on a record. Really mean ground and pound. I mean, we've seen like Habib level ground and pound. I mean, what she did to Holly Holm. I like your prediction. Like, Pena's best chance to get Harrison tired. If she can weather early storm, she could win late. I doubt she gets there. I think certain people are visionaries, and they in the moment won't be too big for Harrison. She's talked this into existence, and I feel like she's just meant to be here. I think Harrison murders her. I think she beats her up in the clinch. I think she gets takedowns. I think she mauls her. I think it's going to be like, holy Christ, Julianna Payne is too tough for her own good, which kind of leads into your prediction. Like, you kind of need her to do that. I just think the referee's not going to give her the chance. I see Harrison win by second round TKO by just brutal ground and pound.
There you go. Second from the top at UFC 316, 12 fights into this card. We finally have our first disagreement of the entire night. And it is me sticking my pride and reputation out there on a limb. We'll see how it plays out. Make sure you join us for the recap. With that, we come to the main event of UFC 316. 5 scheduled rounds for the undisputed men's bantamweight title between defending champ Merab Dvalishvili and the man from whom he took the title, Sean O'Malley. Merab, the 34-year-old Georgian by way of Long Island, 19-4 overall, 12-2 in the UFC, and on a 12-fight win streak. After one of the longest, most delayed runs to a title shot in the modern history of the UFC, he finally snatched gold last September at Noche UFC, taking a unanimous decision over O'Malley. He then defended his title against Umar Nurmagomedov at UFC 311 in January, winning another 5-round decision. This will be his second scheduled defense of the title, and it will be a familiar face, if not familiar hair, in the form of the Sugar Show. O'Malley, 30-year-old Montana native, training out of Arizona, 18-2 with 1 no contest overall, 10-2 with 1 no contest since joining the UFC out of the first season of Dana White's Contender Series. He fought his way to a title shot, became one of the bigger stars in the UFC, captured gold against Aljamain Sterling at UFC 292 back in 2023, a second round knockout of Sterling. He defended the title in a grudge rematch against Marlon Vera in March of 2024, then dropped the title to Dvalishvili again back in September. He has done nothing professionally since then, except apparently work on himself. We'll talk about that a little bit. But he steps back in here trying to win back the title he lost. He is not favored to get it done. Keith, what number does the line start with for your favorite, Merab?
3.
You are absolutely correct. Merab Dvalishvili, minus 300. Sean O'Malley, plus 250 coming back. This is an intriguing enough technical matchup that I'm definitely going to flip this to you for technical analysis first. But as kind of more of the storyteller and setup guy of the two of us, I'm going to throw out a couple observations first, if I may. You already mentioned, and I completely agreed off the top of this preview, that Pena versus Harrison is the one that's been stealing the show in terms of sound bites, press conferences, public appearances at other UFC events. And Merab versus Sean too has been kind of quiet. And I think part of the reason is, one, Merab won the title in pretty obvious fashion, and O'Malley hasn't fought since then. Merab defended the title. He was an underdog, one of the more consistently underestimated fighters in modern MMA history. And all we're hearing about, it's interesting that the best thing that the UFC has to sell us this fight, I'll get to that in a sec. you have been watching the sport even longer than I have. If you're watching the show, you probably remember the UFC has sometimes had to resort to kind of odd left field narratives in order to sell a fight. Alexander Gustafsson in his first fight against John Jones, literally the posters alluded to the fact that finally Jones was fighting somebody taller than him. That's all they had to go on. He had been so dominant.
Yeah.
He had come so close to cleaning his division out.
Yeah. Remember Tim Sylvia, Gan McGee? Because Gan McGee was taller than Tim Sylvia?
Yeah. Like, you almost certainly remember the UFC trying to sell us on the idea that Dan Hardy, the model of the welterweight, high volume, low power boxer, only had to touch Georges St. Pierre's chin once.
Yeah.
Like,
that's when they did the whole, I forget what the show was. It was kind of like the countdown show, but they used to do it. When they do it like a month out and they do it like every week. Or like,
Mm-hmm.
The big ones they should do that for. They should bring that back. But anyways, they did that for Dan Hardy.
Because UFC Embedded is one of the best things the UFC does, but it all rushes by because they do all the episodes during fight week. It is so good. It is like,
it's to me, it's kind of gotten old. This is the same old. Like all right, I'll tell you Embedded. Guarantee someone's getting a haircut this week. Somebody's like, I don't need someone taking their luggage out of their back of their car.
Yeah,
I mean, I actually liked it better when they just followed Dana for the week.
I'm okay with that as well.
When they followed Dana around. It was like Dana White files or some shit like that.
Mm-hmm. All right. So anyway, to get us back on track, all this the long way around to tell us that at UFC Vegas 107 last night, as of the time Keith and I are talking, what they had to sell us on this rematch between, again, one of the best fighters in the UFC and another of the best fighters and biggest stars in the UFC was O'Malley looking at the camera and saying, I don't smoke weed and dye my hair anymore. Like that's it. Like this entire rematch is being sold to us on the idea of Sean O'Malley finally acting like an adult. Like, is that what we've got? Please tell me there have been technical adjustments made, because whatever else may be said, Sean O'Malley is training at MMA Lab, one of the very best camps in the entire sport. Like, John Crouch is working wonders down there. Like, Arizona's been a hotbed of MMA since the early 2000s when all the Arizona State guys came out and kind of formed Power MMA. And they've never had a team like MMA Lab is right now. And they left that first fight with a very clear checklist to stick on the whiteboard at the gym. Please tell me that we've got something more to expect, something different out of this fight than Sean O'Malley literally looking at the camera and saying, I stopped smoking weed. Like, this is what bugs me, because O'Malley came out of that saying, I will do anything to get my title back. Like, I know I can beat this guy. I'll do anything to get back what is mine. Well, do anything except go out and win a fight against another contender. Like, if he had gone out and just dusted a top 135-pound contender, I'd be so much more excited for this fight. But instead, I know exactly what I'm getting out of Merab, and there's precious little to make me think this fight's going to go differently. That's my long setup to give this to Keith for a little bit more of a, down to the bones analysis. But if you've got anything to make me think I'm wrong in that assessment, I'd love to hear it.
I'd love if Merab showed up with freaking dyed hair and a joint in his mouth.
And that's exactly the kind of troll shit that he would do. He's not a great soundbite, but you can tell that he just came straight from Georgia into just ball busting New York culture.
Merab, he's great. It's funny because, well, I'll talk about Merab first before we get to O'Malley. I've put this note in a long time ago in my Merab notes, and it has not been taken out yet, and I'm going to keep saying it until he loses clean. Merab should be undefeated in the UFC. But he fights at the most insane pace in the history of the UFC. I mean, I rank it number one based on when you think about guys who fight when all-time paces, it's usually striking pace.
Mm-hmm.
He does it with the wrestling, which is so more tiring. I mean, his cardio, good
and purposeful, not flailing. I think, like, pardon me for interjecting, but he does what the UFC wanted you to think Clay Guida did.
Yeah, I know. Clickbait, yeah, completely. They're like, you could have talked about two different people the way they actually fight. But
like at any moment in the madness, Merab and his coaches know exactly what he is trying to do and wants to do in the next 30 seconds.
Could you imagine if Merab had big long hair like Clay, how the UFC would react? Every time he moved, his hair was actually flying in the wind. But I mean, his cardio is, I mean, it's unbelievable. Dude never. I mean, his cardio should be studied. I mean, he's on the gas the entire time, constantly moving forward, pushing his opponent back on their back foot. On the feet, I've said this before, he fights like an elementary school kid. He just winds up trying to get a KO with every single punch. He doesn't care about being countered. He just trusts his chill and he's willing to take a chance. And he likes you throwing big. If he throws a big haymaker, he's okay with you trying to throw a big haymaker back. And he should wear it a little bit because it does keep his chin really high in the air. And O'Malley, despite being easily beat in the first fight, he actually did hurt Merab with a body shot in that fight. Merab actually talked about it at the end of the fight. He throws punches, just kind of forces his opponent back and to bring their hands up. He'll do some spinning stuff, spinning back fist, stuff like that. But to his credit, he has cleaned it up. He's striking a little bit and throwing more straight shots. Obviously, we saw that against Nurmagomedov. He's been kicking a lot. I mean, he kicked Peter Yan's calves a lot, but all his striking still is second option. It's all it is to set up a pace and to open up his wrestling. He doesn't have elite entries. I mean, it's just he'll just keep shooting nonstop. It's like, you know what it's like, and that we can put this in the just to get our views up. It's the argument of one gorilla versus 100 men. If 100 men just keep coming, that's Merab. Like just 100 keep coming. We'll have to debate that one.
And the first 38 guys that get killed, they're all Merab too. But he's sacrificing them so the 39th guy can get that gorilla. Yeah.
Yeah, Rob's so crazy. If we lined up 100 people to fight a gorilla, he'd be the first one running out there. It's like, who's that crazy dude?
His takedown stats are like Max Holloway's punch stats, where it's like so ridiculously ahead of the next person that
I could see him. I could see Merab running out there and like shooting a single leg, having a gorilla's leg. Like, all right, come on, guys, let's go. He's running the pipe on the gorilla. No, before the second guy comes, the gorilla's already tired. I lost track where I was. So he obviously he just keeps shooting and he don't care. He'll just shoot nonstop, and he's so mentally strong to not give up on takedowns. He knows he'll get the fight to the ground. He shot 49 times against Peter Yan. I mean, that's insane. He'll shoot just to get you tired. He chains attacks together so well. He'll shoot a double, then quickly hit a single off of it. He'll also circle away from a single and then hit like the misdirect. Like he'll circle. So like say he has the right leg, he'll circle to the right, getting his opponent to adjust their weight that way, and then he'll hit what they call in wrestling a misdirection, where you kind of basically you can either elbow down and drop the hip, or you sits all the way through, which kind of, you're using the person's momentum of like them shifting their weight to the right to block you from cutting them around the corner, and you come back the other direction. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful technique. It's actually one of the moves of wrestling that I'd say me and my son kind of bond over, because it's actually something that both of us were really good at. Like I do it, and he's really put it into his game. So I love seeing Merab doing that. He loves foot sweeps. He's added to his game. He doesn't have the best top control, but he doesn't care, because he'll just take you right back down, and he knows that you wasted all this energy to get back up, and he'll just take you right back down. He showed great takedown defense against Umar Nurmagomedov and great scramble ability, and showed even if he gets taken out, he can just work right back up. Now O'Malley, I I understand what you're saying about the whole get off media, don't dye your hair, don't do interviews, lock yourself away and whatever. What's
I hope it's Art of War misdirection, and he's actually going to come out with a different approach or some
yeah.
answers.
Yeah, like is it Rocky 4, like running in the mountains? I'm cool with that. Like I think it's good, but I mean talk about like him being more focused. He's gonna need to be because Merab is special, you know. And I don't think it can hurt. So I think that's a good thing.
It's good general advice, dude. You're
Yeah.
30 and you have kids.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think some of that also has to do with it more than just I lost Merab. No, he's an incredible athlete. He's long and lanky. He moves super well. I mean, he understands range so well. He's elusive. He flows between stance so well. I mean, I've described before. He's very like Izzy Adesanya like in that. More of a dog than he gets credit with. Like more tougher. I mean, I think we saw that in the Ariane fight. He's super explosive. I'm actually going back. I said it started even in the Rob fight. He's very explosive. He's really quick twitch type fighter, quick hands, great accuracy, got a crisp jab, tons of variety in striking. One of the best at hiding his right hand. His 1-2 is so clean. He's good at changing up his rhythms of his attack, good at beating his opponent to the point of contact. He's also good at picking up his opponent's timing and rhythm if you don't change it up on him. He also lays traps and try to catch you in. He does a lot of feinting. That's how he was getting Marlon Vera. He also worked Marlon Vera's body really good. He's a great counter striker, good at slipping and ripping, good at like slipping just out of the range of the shot and then coming back in his own range with a counter shot. He's good at his pullback right hand is awesome. He does drop his hands a little when he slips. He did that against Pedro Munoz. He did that in the first fight against Marlon Vera. He has big power when he connects. So, I mean, he hurt Pierre many times. He blasted Aljamain Sterling. He even hurt Merab in a fight where he was clearly dominated. He has power in both hands and both stances. He sets up his spinning attacks super easy. He doesn't check leg kicks, which is a major issue. We've seen that in many fights. Merab is someone who kicks legs a lot. Obviously we always go back to like the fight against Marlon Vera. The first fight against Marlon Vera is a perfect example of someone hurting him with the leg kicks. He was stopping the initial shots of Merab. He stopped takedowns from Aljamain Sterling, but I still think it's a weakness. I mean, Pierre taken down 6 times, and obviously Merab took him down, and he was pretty good at creating scrambles and getting up, but that just wasn't the case against Merab because Merab's just a different animal. But to his credit, he showed a good gas tank against Pierre and he wasn't complete. Like he lost against Merab, but he wasn't completely gassed like we've seen other people. Like obviously he was the more tired fighter of the two, but he wasn't.
He won the 5th round.
Yeah, there you go. So there you go. Yeah. I'm an O'Malley fan. I mean, I don't think he deserves an automatic rematch. He didn't do anything in the first match to really warrant. I mean, I guess he won the 5th round, but like still, like he didn't do anything to really warrant a rematch. He didn't lose the title on a split decision or something like that. He didn't have 5, 6, 7 title defenses before that. I can't see why this fight is different than the first fight. Maybe it's Merab as he's has gotten older. I mean, he can't press the same pace. I mean, we saw him do it against Umar, and it was incredible. But like, does that just suddenly fade overnight? Like someone's chin, like the ability to, if he's running on the treadmill at level 10, does he have to step it down to level 8 or level 9? Okay, maybe, but I don't expect it. I think Rob's going to do what he does. I think he's going to press the pace. I think he's going to shoot 1,000 takedowns. I think he's going to probably be even more dominant. I think he's going to get a few takedowns, and O'Malley thinking about everything that went wrong in the first round, having a different game plan, hopefully. No, I don't think there's a game plan in the world that's going to work for him. But other than, and we'll get to this in a second, is landing a big shot. you know, I think that frustration. I've been doing all this work and nothing changed. He's still taking me down. He's still putting me on my back, and I think eventually he just breaks O'Malley's spirit. I say that O'Malley gets frustrated and he finally makes a mistake, and I think Merab puts him out this time. I think Merab subs him. Give me Merab 4th round submission. Now I want to say this real quick before we go on. I don't think there should be a rematch, and other than probably Umar, who he already beat, because I think Umar can make some adjustments. Well, I think Merab dominates him. O'Malley still has probably the best shot of anybody other than, like I said, other than Umar, of beating Merab, because he has the one ability to just he doesn't have to win 25 minutes. He doesn't have to win 15 minutes, win 3 rounds. He needs to win 1 second of a fight, just 1 second landing a shot. But that's really the only chance I think I see him having. So, I know earlier I said that I didn't want to give away what my grade for the card is. The card's deep. There's a lot of good talent. Like I said, there's no boring fights. Normally, you'd give this card an A when you have 2 title fights, you have a bunch of contenders, you got, interesting prospects. But my final grade is going to be like a B, maybe a B plus, simply because you surprised me with your co-main event pick.
Yeah.
But I just feel like I know how the main event and the co-main event is going to go, and I think they're kind of easy fights to pick. And I don't like that. I'm very confident in 2 picks. So,
yeah.
B.
I mean, I'm glad that your general take on this matchup and this rematch seems to line up with mine in a lot of ways. And I'm not going to belabor this very much, but a lot of people seem to misremember the first fight. Like, yeah, it played out exactly like most people thought it would. It was Merab's chin and wrestling and pace against O'Malley's sniper-like striking, and something had to give. And that's how I think most people thought it would probably play out. But it wasn't any 50-45 washing. It was 49-46, 48-47, 48-47, and O'Malley won the 5th round on all 3 judges' scorecards. And it wasn't like a blowout round, just, so a lot of the things that we believe about Merab didn't actually play out that way. Your breakdown of O'Malley striking, yeah, I am more of an appreciator and aficionado than analyst, but I do think the most obvious comparison is Israel Adesanya, just the way he baits and traps and throws to where he's making his opponent go, not to where they are now. All those similarities end when he actually touches the other guy. And then he becomes early Conor McGregor, because he has lead in his hands that Adesanya frankly doesn't. And it's a little different because, Conor's big weapon was always his left. But yeah, as bad as a matchup as Merab is for O'Malley and just about anybody, given what Merab's weaknesses are, that he's a short guy with short arms who makes it worse, or historically has made it worse by not throwing straight punches and just trusts his chin to carry him. And you said it, O'Malley only has to win 1 second of the fight. Like, if you were to quote Joe Rogan, build somebody in a lab to beat Merab, it would be a person with the range, the one-shot power, and the beautiful understanding of space that O'Malley has. O'Malley had 5 rounds to get that one shot in on Merab, and he did hurt him bad once. If O'Malley, I don't know if it shocks the world, but shocks me and makes Dana an extremely happy guy on Saturday, I think it probably just starts with O'Malley nailing Merab with like a shovel uppercut to like to the liver or something. That some people have great chins, nobody has a great liver, and it starts rolling downhill from there. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't see any compelling reason why this one doesn't turn out like the first one, which was fun, closer than a lot of people think, but there was no question at the end who had won, and I'm with you. I could see Merab tuning O'Malley up late and getting the sub late. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility at all, but I'm going to go with it being another decision, and it'll be a real open question on the recap. What is next for these two guys if that ends up being the case? Like, I just can't get the picture out of my head of how discouraged and frustrated Umar Nurmagomedov looked late in that fight. Like, Merab sounds like a miserable guy to fight. Probably a mixed guy to train with. Like, there's no possible way that he hasn't like squirted like icy hot into somebody's shoes or jockstrap in like the locker rooms at Cerro Longo. He's just that kind of dude. He's the kind of dude that starts a rivalry not by talking about your mom, but by taking your stupid Michael Jackson jacket and like throwing it on and like walking around the ring while you're trying to cut a promo. I love Merab. I love O'Malley's fight style. I try never to underestimate like how dangerous he is, how good his tools are. But yeah, it's Merab. It's the Merab era right now, and I think he gets it done by decision. And that is it. The Sherdog Radio Network preview for UFC 316, Dvalishvili versus O'Malley 2, takes place this Saturday, June 7th at Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. I have been Ben. He has been Keith. If this is your first time watching or listening to one of our shows, first of all, where have you been? We've been doing this for 5 years, but thank you. We hope you enjoyed it. We do our best to bring a mix of in-depth analysis and occasional humorous or historic asides that we think we do as well as anybody in this industry. So please do like, subscribe, drop us a comment. Keith and I both man the comment section. We'd love to hear your take on these fights. If you think we left any upset value on the table, this was a card full of extremely wide lines. So if you made yourself rich on any of these fights, let us know. We'll give you your flowers on the recap. You just got to come collect them. We are live on the Sherdog YouTube page right after the main event. Keith takes the captain's chair right there. We'll talk about all 13 of these fights from the top on down to the curtain jerker, talking about what was good, what was bad, what was surprising, what was controversial. There's always something. Talking about what's next for some of the notable winners as well as losers, and talking with you. The live chat is open that whole time, so we're taking your questions, your comments, and your hot takes in real time. We have a growing community of friends that hang out with us after the fights. We would love for you to be part of it. Between now and then, thank you once again for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week, and by all means, enjoy these fights.